Good afternoon, team. We're just going to wait a few more minutes to let a couple of commissioners roll on in, and we'll be starting in a few. Thank you. Okay, I am going to speak slowly so that people can get situated and have a few bites. Welcome, everyone, to the January 13th edition of the Portland Planning Commission. I'll be your chair, Steph Routh. This is our first commission hearing, our commission meeting session hearing of the year, so welcome. I will now officially call the meeting to order. With us today, we have in person Commissioner Alvarado, Commissioner Spivak, Commissioner Knowles, Vice Chair O'Mara, online Vice Chair Thompson, myself, Commissioner Pollock, and Commissioner Brannan. At about 4:30-ish, we will also see Commissioner Ames. If you happen to see him in the hallway, no, you did not. The agenda today, we're going to start with, as we usually do, items of interest from commissioners. The director's report will go into consent agenda. Because it is the first session of the year, per our bylaws, we do election of officers. After that, we'll go straight into the main attractions of the economic opportunity analysis, and then the Columbia Corridor and Industrial Lands Environmental Overlay Zone project. So with that, does anyone have an item of interest from commissioners? Vice Chair Thompson.
Hello, yes. I have a couple of items related to the Portland waterfront explorations that are occurring. There was a briefing that came to the commission probably 2 or 3 months ago now. So for folks that are interested in that topic of the work that's being done at the waterfront, I just wanted to share a couple of upcoming opportunities. One is that there is an advisory committee that the city is assembling for the Tom McCall Waterfront Park design competition. I believe that applications are currently open and close on the 19th of January. You can verify that. And if you are interested in more details or applying, there's a city webpage for that project. And then in addition, a group called Design Portland, previously the City of Possibility, they have a couple of related events. One is called Unfettered Imagination Student Visions, where University of Oregon and PSU architecture students reimagine the waterfront. There's an opening on Friday, January 23rd from 5 to 9 p.m. Other openings that weekend. It's free. If you are interested, you could look up Design Portland or City of Possibility and learn a little bit more about that. And then finally, there is a design exploration that's related to transforming Harvey Milk and Oak to better connect the central city down to the waterfront. There's a presentation on that on Monday, January 26th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And all of these events, I believe, are in the J.K. Gill building at Southwest 5th and Harvey Milk. So that's what I have to share. Good stuff coming up.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Thompson. Others? Yeah, Vice Chair O'Meara.
Thank you, Vice Chair O'Meara. For the record, I am the Planning Commissioner rep to the Development Review Advisory Committee. And at this month's meeting, we will be voting in the work plan for the Development Review Advisory Committee. There are 7 items proposed, and we'll be voting on our top 3 as DRAC members. So if any commissioners would like to see that work plan in advance of the meeting, please let me know. Happy to send it to you. And then I will report back out after we've voted and have selected the priority areas. Thanks.
Could you just share the list of 7 with everybody? That'd be fine. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any others? Okay. All right. Okay. Let us go to Director Diefendorfer for the director's report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm trying to access the mic here in the midst of all this stuff. Pardon me. Patricia Diefendorfer, for the record, Chief Planner, Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. Want to first say that even though it feels like we're well into the year, because I was just reminded that this is the first meeting of the Planning Commission, I wanted to wish everyone a Happy New Year, both in our audience and commissioners. So Happy New Year. I hope the year is off to a good start for you. I have just a few quick announcements. One relates to the Planning Commission tentative agenda. Just want to call to your attention and to make sure the audience is aware that the tentative agenda has been updated online. There have been some changes made to the upcoming meetings and the agendas for those meetings. Rearrange the order of some of the topics in order to accommodate a request from the public to have more time to provide written comment, particularly on the economic opportunities analysis and the Columbia Corridor and Industrial Land Project. So we have worked with the commission officers to rearrange the items on the agenda in order to accommodate that particular request. And so want to just call everyone's attention to the calendar. Please take a look at the updates. And as a expansion of that thought, we have extended the period for accepting written testimony for the EOA and CCIL through February 3rd at 5 p.m. So normally the comment period would have ended at the end of, basically today. But we have, and to honor that request, we are extending it to February 3rd at 5 p.m. So those are some items related to commission business. On other notes, wanted to just let the commission know that the Affordable Housing Opportunities Project, which we've updated you on periodically, I think you already know this, but just as we are approaching, you all, the Planning Commission did unanimously recommend to City Council to adopt that project. It is now scheduled to go before City Council finally. It will be at the Housing and Homelessness Committee on January 27th, and they meet at noon. That's their standing meeting time, is at noon. So just wanted to let you know that that is finally progressing to the council. So we have the committee date of January 27th, and I believe we have the full council date as tentatively as February 11th, I believe, but we can keep an eye on the project website for any updates on that front. So that's that project. And then wanted to just let you know that the street renaming process, so as you all know, the Planning Commission has a role in making a recommendation to City Council on street renamings. And that process, both in the city's code and in the state statutes, gives the Planning Commission the role in making a recommendation to City Council. At yesterday's Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, there was an ordinance that was passed through the committee to the full City Council that reassigns the authority of street naming from the city administrator to City Council. So when all the codes were being updated for process to address, to be responsive to the charter changes, there was an error made in assigning that responsibility to the city administrator and not to City Council, but in fact, it has to be City Council. So that ordinance is rectifying that mistake. And so we just wanted to let you know that that is happening, just in case you happen to see it. Nothing changes from your vantage point because that authority still lies with the Planning Commission, and we are trying to make sure that it's restored in terms of the City Council. And, street renamings are something that we see periodically in the Planning Commission. So we anticipate that you will see them in the future. And then finally, just wanted to make you aware of some happenings within the broader Bureau. You all maybe have been aware that we've had a vacancy of our Deputy Director position for some time. And that position was recently filled. And the person who will serve as the new Deputy Director of BPS is Tate White. Some of you may know Tate. Tate has been with the city for 8 years in various roles, including roles with the City Administrator's Office. And she is going to be joining the Bureau as the Bureau's Deputy Director, and her start date is January 15th. So just wanted to make you aware of that development in terms of the executive leadership of the Bureau. I think that concludes all of my announcements. Happy to answer any questions and happy to have you, Chair Ralph, go back to the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a lot happening indeed. Questions? Thoughts, comments? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Director Diefenderfer. Let us go to the consent agenda, which is composed entirely of our last meeting minutes. Could I have someone?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second? I'd like to be the brave soul.
Seconded.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Pollock. All in favor? Just a raise of hands. Okay, and there we go. Okay, next up, election of officers. So we have one chair and two vice chairs per our bylaws, and would love. I believe we generally start with chair and then go to vice chair. Would anyone like to nominate someone, including themselves, for chair?
I would like to nominate Seth Routh for chair of the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Second that if she's interested.
I am interested. This is fun. Would anyone else like to be chair or to nominate someone else? We could nominate Commissioner Ames since he's not in the room. Okay, I will say it has been an honor to be the chair of the Planning Commission for the last year. I go into, I think, my 7th year, including the PSC and the Planning Commission, and it means a lot, especially in this. Community involvement is something that I care about a lot, and we have such meaty, substantive projects that come before us. One thing that I would really love in the next year to focus on is, particularly in this new form of government, how do we as a commission help build the connective tissue between our body and commissions and city council's work, and how do we make sure that we help steward the testimony and the time and the staff time that has gone into our deliberations here on this body to ensure that City Council is best informed to make decisions that help us all move forward together. So I think we have to go for a roll call. This is awkward. Okay.
Commissioner Alvarado? I'm going to skip Commissioner Ames as he's not present. Commissioner Brannan? Yes. Commissioner Knowles?
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Mara?
Enthusiastically, yes. Thank you.
Commissioner Pollock?
Also enthusiastically, yes.
Commissioner Spivak?
Yes.
Vice Chair Thompson?
Aye. Aye.
And Chair Routh?
Yes, thank you.
It's
Okay.
unanimous.
Great. Well, then I'll stay in this seat. And for vice chair, do we go, I think we can go with 2 at the same time if we would like. And if there's more than 3, then we'll have to break it up somehow.
Well, I have a nomination. So far, this is going much more smoothly than the city council. So
Thoughts and
that is something. I would like to nominate Lucas Pollock. And I just want to say a couple things. One, he's a lifelong Portlander. He's very passionate about his city. And our job is to plan the future of the city, and planning the future of leadership is a part of that.
Thank you, Commissioner Knowles. Great.
And I second that nomination.
Commissioner Pollock, would you like to, do you accept the nomination? And do you have anything you would like to share?
Boy, do I. I'll keep it brief. I want to thank my fellow commissioners for putting this vote of confidence in me. It means quite the world to me. I am just really excited. The scope of the work that we do is really personal to me. I care for this city, runs really deep. It's the only city I've ever called home. And by being nominated for this, I hope to accomplish a lot more of the work for a better future for everyone in this city. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Do we have another, Vice Chair Thompson?
Yes, I do have another nomination. Are we doing them one at a time, or is now the appropriate time to share that nomination?
I think now is the appropriate time. I think
Okay.
we do Vice Chairs as a slate.
Great. Sounds good. I would like to nominate Eli Spivak for vice chair. There are a lot of really nice things I could say about Eli and his knowledge area. He's been doing this for a little while. His propensity for like digging in and just like getting into the details and really looking at things. But I think more than anything for me, Eli has proven himself to be a great fellow commissioner. I think that he will do a stellar job of shepherding a process where everyone feels heard and like they have access to our process.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Spivak, do you accept the nomination? Do you have anything you would like to share?
I will accept, thank you. I'm older now, so when you get older, you don't remember the things you do the first time around. So I've had plenty of time to forget when I was once a vice chair a long time ago. And I think that I would like to sort of have a behind the scenes role. I think one thing we started doing a few years ago was giving other commissioners chances to lead topics as they go through. And I think that we've got, which is great, a young new commission. And so I look forward to sort of bringing that back so that it's possible for people to build the experience it takes to serve on the Planning Commission long term. And I think we have great people to do it. So thanks.
So we have on the floor two is anyone else? Again, now would be the time to nominate Commissioner Ames. Okay. It is actually how I became president of my academic fraternity. I slept in. Okay, then we have on the floor for vice chairs, candidates for vice chair, Lucas Pollock and Eli Spivak. Autumn, could I ask you to call the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado? Commissioner Brannon?
Yes.
Commissioner Knowles?
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Mara?
Yes.
Commissioner Pollock?
Yes.
Commissioner Spivak?
Yes?
Vice Chair Thompson?
Aye.
And Chair Routh?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay, we have officers. And now, I know that we're a tiny bit behind, but we'll take a few minutes if I may. Let's say nice things about now former vice chairs O'Mara and Thompson, who now no longer have to come to officers' meetings. I'll start. That I think, well, Vice Chair O'Mara came on her very first day, became the president or became the chair of the Planning Commission, which is just such a faith-based endeavor, really diving in and helped us establish the new body as the Planning Commission from the Planning and Sustainability Commission, and then has served since as vice chair this year. So just really grateful. And now, like, she's not off the hook because, as just mentioned, she's our liaison to the DRAC. And former Vice Chair Thompson, now Commissioner Thompson, I think you've been an officer for 3 years, 4 years? 4 years, a very long time. And a lot has happened in your life and in your work since. And I'm just deeply grateful for all the ways that you have shown up. And one thing that people don't necessarily see is behind the scenes, just really thoughtful questions and comments and a willingness to always answer the phone or to show up for additional meetings to make sure that this body runs smoothly and that people can feel heard. And I just really have really appreciated that. Yeah, Commissioner Spivak.
Commissioner Thompson, I don't know, I don't know how you always on code projects find the little nibble in there that's critically important that's the rest of us missed. So that's a special skill that I wish more of us had. It's amazing. And Mary Rain, I now know we're both ice skaters at Lloyd Rink. So maybe we'll see you all there sometime. But if we're doing affordable housing is what I really should say. I gave up on that 20 years ago because I couldn't killed enough brain cells and just keep doing it, which is terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Well, thank you for the kind words, and it's been an honor and quite a great learning experience. I want to thank all the staff helped with all of us in onboarding to the new commission, and thank you for the new officers and renewal of chair stepping up. So looking forward to working with you all for another year. Thank you.
Yeah,
Chair Routh, if I may, if other commissioners if there are no other commissioners who wish to speak, I just want to really thank Commissioner O'Mara and Commissioner Thompson for their leadership on the Planning Commission. Chair O'Mara, or former Chair O'Mara, for leading the brand new Planning Commission as we established the brand new Planning Commission, and for Commissioner Thompson, for you being such a consistent voice and a consistent leader on the commission, taking us through this period of transition. Really have appreciated working with both of you so much. And we will miss you at the officers' meetings, but we do look forward to working with our new officers as well. So thank you so much.
And as I think last notes, it might seem in leadership that we have a vice chair and 2 vice chairs, but in fact we have 9 civic leaders around this body. And as Vice Chair Spivak mentioned, we do have, as part of our bylaws, presiding officer opportunities for commissioners to steward specific projects per interest and skill set. We also have liaisons like Commissioner O'Mara to the DRAC along the way, and we do have officers meetings that happen a couple of weeks before each commission session, and anyone can join those officers meetings, especially if it's something that you're interested in beforehand, as long as we do not achieve quorum. So I'm really looking forward to, in this next year, kind of building this body and finding ways for people to lead according to their skill set and interests. And with that, we will go straight in. A mere 9 minutes late, sorry, Tom, we always do this to you. The economic opportunity analysis, which is a briefing followed by a hearing. So if Tom, we could ask Red Rover Tom Armstrong and Corinne Saucedo to join. And a reminder, we'll start with a briefing. This is a public hearing. So we'll first hear the briefing from staff, then invite testimony ahead of our deliberations. Before we get to that, are there any disclosures from commissioners regarding the economic opportunity analysis?
I have one. I have a neighbor who also used to be a work colleague who used to work for the Working Waterfront Coalition, and we've had an informal conversation about this topic.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Chair O'Mara, pardon me. Before we get started, I just wanted to note on the record that as you noted, the briefing will come first. The hearing is time certain of 5 p.m., so we would not start the hearing before 5, and it'll likely take place, start after 5, but I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
Thank you. Okay. Tom and Corinne, take it away. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Commission. I'm Tom Armstrong. I'm a supervising planner here at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability.
And I'm Corinne Saucedo, there we go. Corinne Saucedo, a senior economic planner with the Bureau as well.
And so we are going to give you a briefing on the economic opportunities analysis this evening, the EOA. We had done so back last year on December 2nd, but we had a shortened time. So we're gonna actually go through the whole presentation from start to finish, just for continuity's sake. So can we get that up? There we go. Okay, so the purpose of the EOA is to understand our current long-range employment land needs, and it provides a basis for future policy and zoning decisions. This is the EOA is the complement to the housing needs analysis and housing production strategy. But this time around, we're looking at the employment forecast and the employment land needs. Specifically in front of you is we want to repeal the previous EOA, which was adopted back in 2016, adopt the 2026 EOA, amend the comprehensive plan to update any of those references between the two documents, repeal the employment portions of the 2015 buildable lands inventory, and adopt the 2026 employment buildable lands inventory. Again, back when we did the housing needs analysis update a few years ago, we sort of split the buildable lands inventory into two pieces, the residential capacity analysis and the employment capacity analysis. And at that time, when we adopted everything, we left in place the 2015 buildable lands inventory with that employment analysis. So tonight, we're going to give you just an overview of what the EOA is, and then go through the steps, the employment forecast, the buildable land inventory, a little bit on employment geographies, and then we'll drill down a little deeper into the industrial land policy proposals, which is really where the key decisions are made and supported by the EOA. And then we'll close with a little bit on what we heard during the discussion draft phase of this work, and sort of that'll be the jumping off point for the hearing this evening. So turn it over to you at this point. Okay. All right, I can keep going. So the EOA itself is what we call a supporting document to the comprehensive plan. So right now, we are not proposing to amend any of the policies in the comprehensive plan, but this, again, provides the data, the analysis, the evidence that supports the implementation of the comprehensive plan, and specifically where the EOA comes into play is under statewide planning goal 9. Cities are required to demonstrate that we have a 20-year land supply to accommodate expected employment growth. And so again, as we make decisions, especially when it relates to the zoning code or zoning map, to the extent that those changes impact the supply of industrial land or supply of employment land, we need to continue to show that we continue to have an adequate supply of employment land. And that's really where this analysis comes into play. It's also, as you will see, why we are at this time coordinating this analysis with a number of different policy decisions that impact the land supply, especially the industrial land supply, and why we've really coupled this process with the Columbia Corridor Industrial Lands Project and are looking ahead to other projects and decisions that we expect to come forward in the next few years. Again, the basics are we have an employment growth projection that we turn that employment growth projection into a land need, acres of different types of employment land, and then we compare that to our land capacity to demonstrate that we have enough land supply to meet those expected growth needs. What we see, the high level takeaway from all of this is that, when we look at the different types of employment in the city of Portland and the different areas of employment, what we call EOA geographies, if you think about the central city being office buildings and hotels and visitor facilities versus neighborhood commercial areas with more retail focus, or our industrial areas with manufacturing and warehouses, or our hospitals and colleges. They each have a different mix of employment and a different mix of different types of building requirements for those types of employment. And so we look at those details and compare the forecast and the land demands for each of those areas to ensure that we have enough capacity. And what we find, and if you think about areas like the central city or neighborhood commercial districts, we actually have a lot of capacity and room to grow. especially in the central city. We can go up with office buildings, which is the predominant need in the central city. We don't see that as much in the industrial area. That is more, that type of development is more what we call land extensive. And therefore, as with the 2016 EOA, our industrial land supply is very tight. And so when we go to make decisions that affect that supply, that's where we have to be very careful and look at the analysis and the policy and goal trade-offs that come with those decisions. So again, what we have tried to incorporate into the EOA is a number of different actions that will affect the employment land supply, especially the industrial land supply. Many of these are future actions. The one that is in front of you and together with the EOA is the CCIL Environmental Overlay Zone project, which we'll also hear about tonight. But what we wanted to do, just so we don't have to go through updating the EOA every time one of these projects comes before you, is to anticipate a future decision on all of these other issues and try and account for it in the EOA in a way that we sort of have a budget or have room to make that future decision without having to go through a full sort of EOA update process. And I'll get to that a little bit more later in the presentation. So now I'm going to turn things over to Corinne to talk about the different components of the EOA.
Thanks, Tom. So as Tom mentioned, the core element of the EOA is really how much land do we need, how much land do we have? So I'm going to go over sort of the methodology there. As you can see here on this slide, this is really focused on how much land do we need. To get to how much land we need, we're starting with how many jobs are we projecting for the city. That comes from the state, from the Oregon's employment department, and we are taking that information and their sort of methodology and applying it locally. Now, what we've been doing is looking at what was the growth projections in the previous business cycle. That's that gray line. Beneath that, you can see the green line. That was actually the last two business cycles in terms of what the growth was. What we're landing on is that orange line, which is 0.7% growth. So it's not as robust as we've seen in the last 10, 25 years. We think it's sort of similar to what we've been seeing the last couple of years. So it's the blue line there is what Metro is assuming. So we're kind of in the middle in terms of how ambitious we think the city's job growth will be. What we do is we take those job numbers and we actually apply it to these 5 different areas of the city, sort of based on employment function. So we have the central city, obviously very service-based, commercial areas, so your retail corridors, the industrial areas, campus, the universities and hospitals, and then also those residential areas. So the idea there is how do we interpret those jobs that are coming to the city over the next 20 years? And how do we start to transfer that into what is the demand for land? And then we break these down really into sub-geographies as well, but these 5 areas kind of give you an idea of what those jobs are, how much land they will need. As of 2019, and I think as Tom mentioned, we use a approach the state recommends, which is sort of based on business cycles. So right now, the 2019 is the beginning of this sort of current cycle. This is also very much what we see in the most recent data from 23. The city really has a pretty balanced geographic breakout in terms of our jobs. About a third are in the central city. Another quarter are in those neighborhood commercial areas, about 20% industrial districts, some in our campus institutions, and actually quite a bit or at least more than some people think in our residential areas. So that's about 60% of people work in Central City and those neighborhood commercial, and about 40% are working in all the other areas. As we see the next slide, this is what the growth will look like. So that's those 90,000 jobs that we showed you in that first slide, and how that would look on those same 5 areas. So what you see is Central City neighborhood commercial actually are a little under 50% of that growth, and you're seeing the other areas are starting to make up more of that growth than you saw with the current makeup or breakout of sort of where people work in the city, of which the industrial districts we're seeing a larger increase as well as those residential areas. So we take the jobs and then we're trying to come up with how much land those jobs will need. What we've done is using permit data, sort of state QCW data, we can track how many square feet a person or one of these jobs will require. And again, this is broken out by geographic area. So once you get essentially how big of a box someone is working in those buildings, we then apply the FAR to figure out how big of, how many acres that building more or less would cover based on what we see in those areas. And then it's a pretty straightforward calculation to get to how many acres overall we'll need. So this is, again, the demand side of the equation, around 1,500 acres. The other side is how much land do we have? And this is, so you can see in the little graphic there, we kind of start with all the employment land, and we start to get down to how much land is buildable, and then we get down even closer to sort of what's unconstrained. So we use a GIS model. We're putting in permit data, we're putting in parcel data, those constraints, market data, and then we're starting to kind of narrow down what all the employment land just down to what is the vacant land, what's the redevelopable acres. So we'll go through this sort of step by step. Those constraints, so the first step of getting just to buildable land, we're taking out what already has buildings on it, what's basically not buildable. And then we try and look at what are things like floodplains, what are areas that have substandard infrastructure, environmental overlays, et cetera. So we think we have sort of a conservative approach to coming up with how much land is actually possible over the next 20, 25 years. We're really not trying to overestimate how much land could even be developed. And then next slide. So going left to right there, we have vacant land, we have redevelopable land, which is essentially land that we think could have a little more density on it. So if it's a 10,000 square foot building on a 10-acre lot, maybe that could have more, a larger building on it in the future. We come up with the total acres, and then we're taking that utilization rate, which is kind of a combination of some of those constraints that we're seeing out there. And then we're coming up with that net capacity. So that gets us to that 2,300 acres. And that's sort of where we get to with that. What's the supply? What's the demand? But as we all know, the devil's in the details, and Tom is going to get into one of those areas, the industrial area, which, as we've mentioned, is probably the tightest amount of supply compared to the demand.
Yeah, okay. So a couple of things about the industrial areas, and as we've said, it has the lowest job density, and as you saw in the previous table, it has the highest land demand, and it has been tight. It's getting tighter, but at the same time, the industrial jobs account for 60% of what we call middle wage jobs in Portland. And those are low barrier to entry jobs that don't require four-year college degrees, but provide sort of upward mobility through a career ladder that leads to higher wages. And so when we look at the industrial sectors, it's a whole mix of different types of jobs. It's a mix of manufacturing and transportation, distribution, warehousing, construction jobs, a few utility jobs. But, we have a good, strong base, as you see in the numbers. And what you see on the right-hand side is we're, forecasting the annual growth rate. It, varies by those types of jobs. And so we're and as was shown in the earlier chart, we have a lot of opportunity to take advantage of the opportunity to grow these sectors where we already have a strong base to build from. Here's another way of looking at these are jobs in the industrial area. So this previous slide were the industrial sectors themselves, but the industrial area itself has a wider range of jobs, right? We have small retail businesses, we have services, there's some hotels and motels, there's even healthcare clinics. Some of the companies have management and corporate headquarters like Daimler. So there's a wide range of jobs in our industrial area that have a wide range of land needs. But again, sort of the four largest segments of that demand is in the transportation, warehousing, the manufacturing, the wholesale distribution, and the construction jobs. So when we look at those different sectors, those different occupations, and the emphasis on middle wage jobs, we really are trying to look at sort of the lower left-hand side of this graph, which is those jobs and occupations that have higher median wages. And typically, when we see those workers, they tend to not have four-year college degrees. And so we see that as, again, a sort of low barrier job opportunities in these sectors. Again, when we look at the region for where these low barrier jobs are, the middle wage job segment of that, about 60% of those are in the industrial occupations, and then another 40% or so are in office support and primarily office support and healthcare support type jobs. So that's, in terms of thinking about economic equity and opportunity and shared prosperity, these are the sectors where we really want to focus on that opportunity to provide those better paying jobs. Again, this is another way of looking at it, thinking about these different occupations. And what we also included in this slide is some of those lower wage occupations. And what you see starting from the left-hand side is that these jobs all start out paying about the same. They're pretty tightly packed on that side of the graph. And then think of as over time, as you gain experience and opportunity for promotion, what you see at that 90% level is where the wages really start to stretch out, such that the construction jobs and the installation and repair jobs and some of the sales jobs really pay a lot more than the retail jobs or the food preparation jobs. And in the middle, you have the manufacturing and the transportation, distribution, warehousing jobs, the admin jobs. They're all clustered there, and that's why we call this the middle wage job opportunity. And that really represents the upward mobility of those types of occupations. So digging down into our industrial areas and our tight industrial land supply, and what we're trying to achieve through this EOA is a coordinated policy decision, because we have direction at all levels, coming at the state level, at the regional level, and even within our comprehensive plan, to really protect our natural resources and provide economic opportunity. And these all come together. We have a confluence in the industrial area because we have the Willamette River, we have the Columbia River, we have the Columbia Slough, we have a lot of natural resources and a lot of industry all wanting to be in the same place. And so what we're trying to do through this EOA is that balancing of how do we do both? How do we protect the natural resources? How do we provide economic opportunity? And so what we've tried to do and incorporate into this EOA is a number of different decisions that go into that balancing, and that what we looked at and what you see in the scenario analysis part of the EOA is we looked at different combinations of actions. And we put it on a very basic high, medium, low scale. So, if you looked at scenario 1 here on this chart, that would be a very low level of effort on all of those fronts. Whereas, combination scenario 6 on this chart, we're going to lean into everything and try and do everything. We're going to invest a lot in our freight infrastructure and our sewer and water infrastructure, and we're going to do a lot in terms of natural resource protection. And then there's various combinations, whether you want to lean on in investment in infrastructure, or if you want to lean in on natural resource protection or community impact livability protections. So just to go through, highlight for you what each of these really means and how we incorporate it into the EOA. Again, the one that's coming with this and is a sort of firm final recommendation on your part is the Columbia Corridor Industrial Land Environmental Overlay Zone project. All these others, we've done a little bit of conceptual development of what they might look like and are incorporating them into the accounting of the EOA. And I'll explain what those concepts look like. But they're not set in stone at this time and will be subject to the sort of full planning process that the E-Zone project has gone through over the last couple of years. So you'll hear more about this later this evening, but the Environmental Overlay Zone project is really to adjust the environmental overlay zones in the Columbia Corridor, especially along the Columbia Slough. These were initially set 20, 25 years ago. We have much better data on where those resources are actually located, both from aerial photography and LiDAR, as well as over the last couple of years, we've invested staff time in doing field visits and actually looking at what's on the ground. And so we've come up with a proposal to make those adjustments and to apply the Environmental Conservation Zone, the C Zone, and the Environmental Protection Zone, the P Zone, to those various resources in this area. In addition to that, what has been sort of hanging out there since 2021 are adjustments to the tree code and how it applies to the heavy industrial zone. We as a city made a change and adopted tree code requirements for tree planting and tree preservation back in 2021 that applied to the general industrial zone, the IG zone, and the employment zone, the EG zone. But because of our tight industrial supply and the more land extensive nature of the heavy industrial areas, think the areas along in the Portland Harbor, think of the marine terminals, the areas that have lots of lay down and outdoor storage areas. We sort of held back on applying the tree code to those areas until we did an update of the EOA. And so now that we've done the update, we're bringing forward a future project that could apply the tree code planting requirements and tree preservation requirements to the heavy industrial zone as well. Just a reminder, what that means is that it's mainly about protecting the largest trees. If you go to develop a site and it has existing trees on it, right now, if the tree is what we call up to 12 inches of diameter at breast height, you can remove those trees. If it's between 12 inches and 20 inches, you can remove those 2/3 of those trees without any mitigation. If you go beyond that limit, then you have to pay a mitigation fee of $1,800 per tree. And then for the larger trees, 20 inches or larger, you have to pay $450 an inch. That's starting out about $9,000 a tree, more than $9,000 a tree, depending on the size of that tree. In terms of, the tree canopy planting requirement right now is in the general industrial zone is that 10% of the site should be covered by tree canopy. That's not 10% of the site, but think of planting areas and then the tree canopy grows up and covers 10% of the site. And so that can include tree planting in the parking areas. It can include trees along the edges of property. You also get credit for the trees on your property that are in environmental overlay zones and other trees that you may protect through tree preservation. We did some analysis just to get a handle on the,
Because I don't remember, are those fees less than what's applied in residential and other zones currently?
These are the fees that are applied across the city in residential.
Okay, so is the proposal that, from the prior slide, that in the industrial zones, the fees would be these, or they would be less than this?
What we had explored is to reduce the fee for the 20 inches or larger to the 1,800 square foot or $1,800 per tree. But again, that's a sort of decision that's going to be recommended by the Urban Forestry Commission.
So we shouldn't interpret the slide as labeled tree code and heavy industrial. This is the tree code of the rest of the city, and heavy industrial will be less than this.
Yeah, it could be.
Could be, yeah, up to the future decision. Thanks.
Yeah, we're again, as part of sort of balancing economic opportunity with preservation, tree preservation, resource preservation, we felt that was a good middle ground, if you will. When we looked at those existing trees that would be subject to those tree preservation requirements, we looked at both all of the lots in the heavy industrial zone and then those lots that are in the buildable land inventory. So what might be accommodating future development where these regulations would really come to bite. And what we found was that there's really only about 10%, less than 10% of the heavy industrial area has any trees on it right now at all, about 300 acres. About half of those 300 acres are already protected by an environmental overlay zone or by the Willamette River Greenway zone. So they already have some measure of protection on them. And that, that leaves about 150 acres of trees, total trees on sites with heavy industrial zoning that are potentially at risk for tree removal without mitigation under the current code structure. When we zero in on the buildable land inventory, that vacant and redevelopable acres that is out in the heavy industrial zone, that number shrinks to 22 acres. So we're talking about a relatively small amount of land that would be subject to these tree code requirements. Another project that has been waiting for an update to the EOA and that is in development is the Willamette River North Reach project. This is a continuation of the South Reach and the Central Reach project work that we've been doing over the last couple of years. We're starting the outreach portion of the North Reach project. And what we're looking at is what is the development setback along the river for non-river related development. Right now, that's a 5-foot setback. What we have modeled in the EOA is the impact of a 50-foot setback. Again, because this North Reach is sort of the working harbor, it's important to note that this is for non-river related development. River-related development like docks and cranes and the equipment needed to use that river are not subject to this setback requirement. The other step to this is to replace the Greenway Overlay Zone with the River Environmental Overlay Zone. And what that really does is sort of narrow the scope of where these regulations apply. Right now, the Greenway really covers a broad area, and you have to go through the process to show that you're not impacting natural resources along the river, whereas the River Environmental Overlay Zone is actually applied to those resources, much in the way that the Environmental Overlay Zone along the Columbia Slough applies. So again, we've tried to accommodate and create room for that future decision without locking in that decision itself. The other important emerging issue that we've tried to address is around community livability and sort of think of this as the industrial residential edge. We have up to 68 miles of areas where industrial zoning abuts residential neighborhoods, and that can often cause conflicts, especially with larger, more impactful industrial uses such as large warehouses or large manufacturing facilities. And so what we looked at in the scenarios is sort of two different measures. One scenario was to look at all sites, all developable sites within that 500-foot buffer, and another one that just only looked at sites 5 acres and larger, which is really, if you think about 5 acres, that's about what can handle a 100,000 square foot warehouse in terms of what we see in terms of development patterns in the industrial area.
So Tom, where is this example on here?
This example is the Columbia Boulevard area in Northeast Portland. So just above the 500-foot buffer, that is I-5. And so it's sort of the area between I-5 and the airport. The big area up to the north east corner of the map, the upper right-hand side of the map is the airport. And so this is the area between sort of I-5 and Northeast 33rd Avenue.
Okay, thanks.
In terms of investment strategy, that is one way for us to sort of recapture capacity. Corinne talked about we have what is left in our industrial capacity has a lot of constraints that we looked at, especially brownfields, contamination from previous industrial uses. That's particularly important in the Portland Harbor where the Superfund remediation is going on. We have a lot of infrastructure needs, freight infrastructure, unimproved streets, and then some areas that lack adequate water, sewer, stormwater improvements. And so we looked at a range of investment options to help sort of relieve those constraints, and that the way the buildable land inventory works is that when we sort of remove those constraints, that brings some of that constrained capacity sort of back available for development. So again, the way to think about this is that we've tried to incorporate some of these future decisions into sort of the EOA now to anticipate these future actions. But that, again, moving forward with this is the Columbia Corridor E-Zone project. And so how that plays out when we incorporate those assumptions, some of which, like the E-Zone or the North Reach project, sort of reduce industrial capacity, and some of the investment brings that capacity back online. It changes what Corinne was referring to as those utilization numbers. And there's pluses and minuses that work through the model, but that gets us basically a net impact, a net increase in our industrial land capacity. Such that when we look at the industrial areas, we have 4 sub areas that we look at. We have the dispersed employment areas that are scattered throughout the city. So think about that as being the Brooklyn Yards or the industrial land along I-84, or there's some general employment EG land along 82nd Avenue. Those scattered sites. East Columbia is the area sort of east of the airport, east of I-205 along Airport Way. That is more recent development. It has a different development pattern than what we call the Harbor and Airport District. So think of the airport and the areas west of that stretch along Columbia Boulevard, along Lombard, into Rivergate, and along the Portland Harbor area and into the Northwest Industrial area. We have the harbor access area is that area that is right on the river. That is our river-dependent marine terminals and industrial uses like Gunderson that make barges that really rely on that marine access for their work. And what we see there across those different geographies is most of these geographies have a sufficient land supply. The East Columbia has a small shortfall that can be made up in those other areas. Think of a certain amount of industrial uses, manufactured warehousing can locate in more than one geography. And so we think as a response to a tightening land supply, businesses that want to be here will find the space somewhere in the city that suits their needs. So a big question is why is there still an industrial land surplus? It's been 10 years since we did the last EOA. It was tight then. It's still tight, but we have a small surplus. And there are a couple of things have changed in the last 10 years. One is we have a lower, slower job forecast. I think that parallels a lower, slower population forecast. That's playing out at the national level, at the state level, at the regional level. As we have an aging population and lower birth rates, and especially in the short term, lower immigration, that's all affecting the growth, the pace of growth. And we see that play out. For example, in 2016, we were total citywide, we were planning for 141,000 new jobs by 2035. Now we're only planning for 90,000 jobs by 2045. So that's a much lower, slower employment forecast. We've seen changes and primarily, shifting changes in job density, especially in terms of warehouse workers. A lot of that has to do with fulfillment centers and e-commerce and direct-to-consumer delivery that have a higher employment number related to that we've factored that into the land demand analysis. A new one has to do with redevelopment capacity. Again, in the response to tighter land supply, we are starting to see activity where, as Corinne mentioned, businesses are seeking out the lower value, smaller development that they can afford to demolish and replace with a bigger building. And we expect that trend to continue to occur as our industrial supply gets tighter. And so that's where you see this play out, where back in 2016, we had almost 1,800 acres of industrial land supply. We've seen, close to, since 2019, we've seen about 350 acres of industrial development occur in the city. That's factored into the 1,500 acres of land supply that we're forecasting in this EOA. Another way of looking at this is because we are setting up a series of decision points, is sort of what do we call the base? What is our starting point before we make any of those decisions? And that's what you see here in the top row. Like a no change EOA going forward has about 1,485 acres of supply. Then we factor in the Columbia Corridor E-zones. That takes away a little bit of that supply, but we still have a surplus. The investment and even a low investment that focuses on creating brownfield incentives and continuing to invest in our freight infrastructure, only those two steps, can bring close to 150 acres of supply back online. And then again, we take back a little more of that capacity when we factor in the North Reach project, tree preservation, community livability buffers. But that's sort of how the supply ebbs and flows through these decisions that we expect to make over the next 3, 5, 7 years. Okay, just to start to wrap up, another piece of this, and you'll hear testimony on this this evening, is back in 2021, we did what's called the Marine Industrial Land Analysis, or the MELA. And we looked at one of the issues that we were trying to solve for is because of the Portland Harbor Superfund, that's a real, casts a shadow over development, especially new investment coming into that Portland Harbor area, because new businesses are reluctant to invest in it and get tagged with the liability for the cleanup of the harbor. And so what we wanted to understand is if the Superfund wasn't an issue, what kind of demand is out there? Because we haven't seen a lot of development out there. What we have seen has been existing businesses reinvesting and expanding on their site. That's where we've seen most of this growth. But we do see, 300, 350 acres of potentially developable land in the harbor. How, if you sort of could look through the Superfund, what would you see? And that was these sort of ranges of industrial land scenarios that they were looking at. And what they found is there's a lot of uncertainty out there. We could continue to see a decline and a reluctance to invest in the harbor. We could see some moderate growth, both in terms of industry and in our marine terminals, or we could see really robust growth. In the end, we included this work in sort of the high demand scenario, not our baseline scenario, primarily because two factors. One is, we are showing some growth, employment growth in the harbor access area that is based on the Oregon Employment Department projections. So we're not totally ignoring the marine industrial area. That opportunity is still dependent on progress with Superfund remediation. That is still ongoing. It's still in the design phase. But also, a lot of this analysis was done in 2021. It was based on pre-pandemic cargo forecasts. There's still a lot of uncertainty about what is possible. And I think, again, when we look out there, there's 350 acres of very highly constrained land out there that may or may not come online. But where the focus should be is on the investment in removing some of those constraints, continue to lean in on the Superfund cleanup, look at the other infrastructure constraints that are out there to activate what land we have and to support the businesses that we have. And so, that's how we factored that into this EOA. I'm going to let Corinne talk a little bit about the discussion draft outreach and what we heard through that process and the changes that we made in response to that process.
Thanks. And there's only a couple slides left, but it's been a great process in terms of getting input from a wide variety of parties. We have a working group that met over multiple years. I think there was 12 or 13 meetings. There was a technical advisory committee that also met 4 or 5 times. And then in the fall, we were out hosting different input sessions and listening sessions, and then going out, talking with our industrial partners, talking with environmental advocates, and trying to get as much input as we could as we were developing this proposed draft. So it's been a great process. After every one, we really did come away with more insight. The sort of larger themes, and these have come up earlier in this conversation. Obviously, the Columbia Corridor and the harbor are valuable resources, both from the employment community and the environmental community. There's concerns around regulation and uncertainty. We haven't talked about it as much, but we did also talk to folks about small business development, Central City, and I think the themes there really did circle back oftentimes to permitting and permitting reform, more clarity with permitting, and just sort of informal guidance. And I think what we had a lot of conversations around was how to get this balance of environmental protections and how you make that coexist with industrial needs. As Tom mentioned, we did do some adjustments based on a lot of this feedback. So we did tweak kind of the amount of square feet per job within our warehousing assumptions to be less dense than we had originally. We did look at how the future, if the city is able to really invest in the ways that we think it can to bring in more manufacturing and maybe shift some of those warehousing and logistics jobs into manufacturing, how that would impact at least the land needs, but the job projections. There was a lot of ongoing conversations with property owners around those E-zone boundaries, as Tom mentioned. And then we did end up bringing in some of the smaller parcels in our industrial areas because we looked into it, they actually have been developed at a higher rate than we had originally thought. So there is permitting evidence to show that those sites that are smaller than 1 acre actually are being utilized in a lot of our industrial areas. Quickly, we'll go over some of these strategies, which maybe we're most excited about, and we did break these out into these 5 areas. We tried to filter these based on what obviously the public sector can do, what we can do when it comes to land use, and maybe some of our partners around the city. So it's investing in infrastructure, as we've mentioned a lot, we think can move the needle on the amount of land that's available. Really leveraging some of those brownfield remediation tools that are out there from the state, federal level. Looking into simple things like concurrent permitting, so someone can do their grading while they're waiting for other kinds of permits to come through. Obviously in Central City, we're already moving on ways that we can perhaps allow for more flexibility when it comes to what kind of uses can take place, and whether that's more production, just how do we activate some of these vacant offices that we're seeing. And then also when it comes to residential areas, there's a lot more people starting businesses and working out of their homes. Do we need to revisit some of those business rules for home-based businesses? In our neighborhoods, can we promote light production? So someone could be roasting coffee and selling coffee in the same building. And then just working with our institutional partners as well. So if there are infrastructure needs or land use needs to allow those jobs, whether it's healthcare or education, really just be flexible in allowing for some of that growth in the future. All right. So what we are proposing, I think as we brought up at the beginning, is to repeal the 2016 EOA and adopt the 2026 Economic Opportunities Analysis. We are looking to amend the 2035 Comprehensive Plan and update the references to the 2016 EOA to the 2026 EOA information, and then repeal the employment portions of the 2015 buildable lands inventory and adopt an updated 2026 employment buildable lands inventory. And that's, I think,
That concludes our presentation.
Thank you, team. That's a lot of work and a lot of information. For the colleagues, is there anything we will have plenty of time to discuss, have questions, more substantive? Are there any questions that anyone has that would help inform or better hear testimony this evening? Okay. Tom Crin, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. And with that, we're going to begin oral testimony. So first, thanks to everyone, both online and in person, who has chosen to be here to share your testimony. There are many places that you could be, and you're with us, and we are very grateful. So thank you to those who have registered to testify. The deadline to register to testify was yesterday at 5 p.m. If you have not signed up and are here in person, you can still testify by filling out a paper sign-up sheet, and it's available. That is Autumn, our wonderful Autumn, if you want to see her. Thank you so much. We have 45 people testifying, 24 for the economic opportunity analysis and 21 so far for the CCIL. Our intention is to hear from everyone. We believe we will be able to hear from everyone in the time allotted. I'm just reading this. I'll say, if you want to absent yourself from this dogma, please remember there are bathrooms just outside, and also remember to hydrate. There's water available there as well. In order to hear from everyone, the Commission would appreciate everyone's cooperation in preserving order. Disruptive conduct, such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or Commission deliberations will not be allowed. And further, one thing that I forgot to mention last time and did not enforce, snapping and waving are great. Clapping or vocalizing less so. Thank you so much. Okay. I will call testifiers in the order of registration, which was emailed to all testifiers last night. Your testimony, please, should address the proposal before the Commission, either the Economic Opportunity Analysis, which is our first, or the Columbia Corridor and Industrial Lands Environmental Overlay Zone Project. And we will start with there are some of you who are going to do for both. So we'll start with EOA, and then second will be CCIL. So you got 2 minutes for each. Your testimony should address when testifying, state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. If you are a lobbyist, please identify the organization you represent. Virtual testifiers, please unmute yourselves when we call your name. And testifiers will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony, please. If you have more information to share, please feel free to supplement your oral testimony with written testimony through the MAP app that can be linked from the project website. And as Director Diefendorfer mentioned earlier, we have extended the written testimony, although the oral testimony will end this evening. Written testimony for both projects will close Tuesday, breaking news, Tuesday, February 3rd at 5 p.m. And thank you again. And with that, we will get started. And we'll start first of all, and already people are online, so great. Tanya Hartnett, Heather King, and David Labby. Thank you so much for being here. Great.
All myself. All right. Good evening, Chair Ruth and Commissioners. Thanks for having us. My name is Tanya Hartnett, and I'm the Executive Director of the Working Waterfront Coalition, representing the industrial and maritime businesses that power Portland's working harbor, where nearly 30,000 Portlanders work in jobs that provide family wages, benefits, and retirement security without the need for a bachelor's degree. Harbor industries alone generate roughly $1.8 billion in personal income for this region. The EOA correctly recognizes that industrial areas are expected to capture about 1/3 of all new jobs by 2045. That makes industrial land policy central to Portland's economic recovery. The question before you is whether this EOA, as written, will enable that growth or unintentionally undermine it. First, the EOA baseline still excludes the city's own MILA, which Tom just went over, was commissioned precisely because standard NAICS code-based forecasting does not capture the realities of harbor and maritime industries. Leaving it out structurally understates demand and creates the appearance of an industrial land surplus that does not exist on the ground. Second, the EOA relies on heroic assumptions about Portland's ability to redevelop industrial lands. Constrained sites, Superfund properties, flood-prone parcels, and land lacking sewer, stormwater, rail, or freight access, and sites with slope as much as 25% are counted as available supply through discounting. That inflates land capacity on paper while masking real shortages and the need for government-driven actions, particularly for 10 to 50 acre freight-served and river-dependent sites. Overstating available land and undervaluing the contribution of existing harbor businesses sends the wrong signal to employers and investors. When assumptions don't align with operational reality, investment pauses, modernization is delayed, and disinvestment follows. We respectfully ask the Commission to direct BPS to correct the baseline forecast, distinguish functionally developable land from theoretical capacity, and adopt a no net loss of industrial land and function policy so this EOA become a tool for economic recovery, not a barrier to it. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Heather, can we hear you?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. My name is Heather King, and I'm the co-executive director and Lower Willamette Riverkeeper for Willamette Riverkeeper. The EOA is an opportunity for Portland to reaffirm its commitment to clean air, clean water, healthy neighborhoods, and respect for treaty rights. The city has a responsibility to address and mitigate the ongoing harms caused by past land use decisions by centering environmental justice communities in this planning process. The proposed EOA draft selects a low community livability scenario. This is unacceptable and must be reconsidered. Economic development should make Portland a better place to live, one with clean air, water, green spaces, and livable family wage jobs. The priority of the EOA should be to improve the quality of life for people who live, work, and recreate in this city and the Portland metro region, not to make life easier and more profitable for industry. The EOA should also guide Portland's transition to a sustainable, climate-friendly economy. Clean energy and green jobs must be prioritized, along with job training and technical education, ensuring local communities benefit from these opportunities. Earthquake preparedness must also be fully integrated into the EOA. A Cascadia subduction zone earthquake is not a question of if, but when. Much of our industrial land sits on liquefiable soil, and without the highest safety standards, a seismic event could result in catastrophic harm to communities and waterways. Finally, the EOA must require a 170-foot setback from rivers and streams. The proposed 50-foot setbacks are insufficient to protect water quality, public health, and habitat. Expanded setbacks would also allow for increased tree canopy, improving climate resilience and the health of nearby communities. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today.
Thank you. David?
My name is David Labby. We've known for years that a Cascadia earthquake inevitably threatens Portland's economy. A 2018 Oregon Department of Geology study found that the Cascadia event will likely cause extensive to complete damage of up to half of Multnomah County's industrial buildings and to a third of the commercial buildings. The greatest economic damage will be here in Portland, along the industrial and commercial zones of the Columbia and Willamette riverfronts, liquefiable areas which will also have the greatest human casualties. Yet there is not one mention of the Cascadia earthquake in the EOA. Instead, Portland's highest risk areas are exactly where the EOA proposes to find 80% of Portland's developable land, including 58% of developable industrial land. It is where the EOA cites almost half of Portland's 20-year job growth. Many of those are middle wage jobs, but concentrating middle wage job in a future disaster zone is not equity. Why would Portland bet its economic future on areas at greatest risk of Cascadia devastation, areas that will also be exposed to recurrent flooding when the earthquake destroys the 27 miles along the Columbia of protected levees? One could reasonably argue that there is no safer ground for an industrial zone within city limits, but in fact, there is no reason to limit our EOA to city boundaries. Oregon land use law explicitly encourages multi-jurisdictional coordination. Quote, cities and counties are strongly encouraged to conduct a single coordinated economic opportunity analysis, unquote. Portland's economy does not stop at city limits. What we need and what state law encourages is an EOA created in partnership with other regional jurisdictions to plan how to collectively mitigate Cascadia's economic impacts. I urge the Planning Commission to recommend that the city use this EOA simply as the first step in a broader regional planning effort to ensure our economic future. Truly addressing the Cascadia threat is the real opportunity in this EOA process. We look to the Planning Commission to ensure that the continued Cascadia denial is no longer an option. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all. Next up, Mackenzie Pringer. And forgive me if I'm getting your names wrong, please correct me. Dee Birch by phone, and Martha Johnston.
Good evening. My name is Mackenzie Springer, and I'm speaking on behalf of Neighbors for Clean Air, a statewide organization that works to ensure that every Oregonian has clean and healthy air to breathe. We urge the city to ensure that Portland's EOA not only plans for economic growth, but also proactively protects public health and air quality through high community livability, especially as the transportation and warehousing sector continues to expand. To meet same-day delivery demands, companies are increasingly building urban last-mile distribution and fulfillment centers. This shift moves diesel truck traffic and its pollution closer to where people live. This matters because diesel pollution is one of the most dangerous air pollutants Portlanders face. It is linked to a vast array of chronic health concerns, including asthma, heart disease, and stroke. Children are especially vulnerable to diesel pollution if they are exposed during vital development periods. Portlanders, in particular BIPOC and low-income communities, are already exposed to unhealthy diesel pollution levels. Adding new warehouse activity without strong safeguards compounds an existing public health crisis. The draft EOA acknowledges that warehouse growth can negatively impact livability and safety if not carefully managed, but it fails to identify meaningful pathways to adequately protect air quality or ensure that nearby communities experience high livability. One major flaw is a reliance solely on industrial size as a proxy for impact. A warehouse's air quality impact comes not from the size alone, but also from truck traffic intensity. How many trucks are entering and exiting, how often, and what kind of vehicles they are. Warehouses may fall below the city's proposed 5-acre threshold, yet still generate significant diesel pollution. That's why we urge the city to consider high community livability through a warehouse rule moving forward. Instead of focusing solely on industrial size, a warehouse rule takes an emissions-based approach and limits the diesel pollution generated by a warehouse's facilities operations. It creates accountability while allowing flexibility in how operators comply. California's WARE program and proposed legislation in New York City show that this approach is both legal and effective. High community livability in the form of a warehouse rule would ensure that growth does not come at the expense of communities and that economic opportunity does not come at the expense of community health. Thank you.
Do we have D? Let's come back. Do we have a Martha? All right. And Mackenzie, sorry for.
Oh, no,
killing
I
the
might
last
have
name.
typed it wrong. I don't know.
Right. And while Martha is getting settled, could we have Bob Short and Daniel Eisenbeiss join, please? Thank you.
Chair Ralph, I believe that this individual wanted to speak to the next project, but inadvertently signed up for this project. So we're
Great.
advising that she can testify for the next project.
Yes, perfect. Wonderful. Okay. We'll make a note of that. Thank you so much. Bob, at your leisure.
Chair Ruth, Commissioners, my name is Bob.
Actually,
Short.
could I, it's a weird button that's hard to see. I think we got it.
Got it? Okay.
Good.
Chair Ruth, Commissioners, my name is Bob Short. I am a board member of the Working Waterfront Coalition. I'm here representing Cal Portland, the largest supplier of sand and gravel, cement, and ready-mix concrete in the Portland metro. I want to tell you a story about Mike, which is not his given name. Mike is Hmong. He was born in northern Laos. The Hmong are an ethnic and cultural minority in Laos and were subject to ethnic cleansing campaigned by the Pathet Lao back in the 1970s. When Mike was 15, he was packing an AK-47 and shepherding his mother and sister across the Mekong River into Thailand, where they spent 5 years in a displaced persons camp before they were able to emigrate to the U.S. as refugees. In 1981, Mike got a job as a laborer with Cal Portland, even though he didn't speak much English and never had the advantage of even a high school education. His job was to shovel out the tunnel underneath the batch plant. He was a hard worker, and when the tunnel job was done, the company put him to work in quality control department, where he was involved in testing concrete. I don't have time in 2 minutes to describe what that entails, but it's pretty complicated. All I can say is that Mike is now approaching retirement. He's an American citizen, owns his home, and sent his kids to college. He's the American dream. This is the kind of opportunity that's afforded by land available in industrial sectors more so than anywhere else in our economy. It's important that we have a supply of buildable, developable, and investable land that does not include marginal and constrained lands that people are not going to want to build on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Routh, members of the commission, I'm Dan Eisenbeis, Regional Affairs Manager with the Port of Portland and a registered city lobbyist. The Port is a public agency whose mission is to build shared prosperity in the region through travel, trade, and economic development. We operate 3 marine terminals, 6 industrial parks, and 3 airports that serve as major economic engines. We appreciate the extensive work the city has done to prepare the proposed economic opportunities analysis. However, as detailed in the port's written testimony, we have concerns that the proposed draft includes certain assumptions and methodological choices that do not appear to be supported by the best economic data available, resulting in an overstatement of industrial employment land capacity and an understatement of demand for that capacity. Issues range from floor area ratio and square foot per employee ratio assumptions to consideration of site slopes and site sizes to allocation of employment growth in industrial sectors. For instance, the proposal fails to incorporate the baseline growth scenario from the Marine Industrial Land Analysis, or MELA, in the EOA baseline growth scenario. Written testimony from DLCD states that this omission is contrary to state requirements. Properly including the MELA would result in a shortfall of industrial land capacity. City staff has stated in meetings that the MELA was not incorporated because new land supply is not available, and the city is not allowed to adopt an EOA with a shortfall. However, this distracts from other actions to increase development capacity, and the latter point is directly rebutted in the testimony from DLCD. Moreover, according to the MELA, quote, slower growth in the harbor sector would have inequitable impacts on the economic mobility of BIPOC workers throughout the region and residents without a college degree. The port respectfully urges you to interrogate and remedy the flawed assumptions and methodological issues identified by the port and others. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And now we have Peter Finley Fry, Steve Wong, and Will Short. I understand that you are a package deal and you have a presentation.
That's correct. So we're all settled in. My name is Peter Finley Fry. I don't see my PowerPoint.
It
Sorry.
takes a second.
Okay, my name is Peter Finley Fry. I'm a certified land use planner. And I'm here to ask you to add to page 106 strategy. And that strategy is to implement an IX zone. That would be an industrial sanctuary policy that would implement a light industrial zone. We're going to talk briefly about our request, and then they're going to talk about the difficulty of reinventing these industrial buildings into modern industrial uses. And then we're going to end by showing you how that's done. Can you do the next slide? So briefly, our goal here is to have this IX zone, which is a light industrial zone, as part of your industrial sanctuary package to be protected in the same way that farm and forest property is protected. I don't have enough time to get into the complexity and the evolution of industry since 1960 when you first created your zones. And I will point out that your industrial zones have not been updated since. Next slide, please. Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve Wong with Stanley Kemper Bard, also known as SKB. SKB bought the Iron Fireman building, formerly the Pico site, in 2016. The building's 130,000 square feet with 25,000 square feet of second floor space. The renovation was completed in 2018, combining buildings, creating a central hallway, and was designed for leasing to multiple tenants. We received a lot of interest immediately. However, it took us 6 years to finish leasing the project, probably twice the amount of time it would have taken if not for the number of tenants we had to turn away due to zoning or who couldn't accept the delivery timing and uncertainty. Much has been said over the last several years regarding long permit times, which at Iron Fireman range from 6 to 12 months. But the uncertainty due to the building's IG1 zoning imposes strict limitations on the amount of office and retail that's allowed, and no matter the size of the building, and while accessory office is allowed, the requirement is that it's for support of the primary production and warehouse functions. We were required to submit a Tier 3 land use review for each TI permit to demonstrate that we met the zoning requirements. We had to screen tenants very carefully to make sure there was a high probability of getting approvals, and we hired land use attorneys to draft Tier 3s to maximize our chances the applications would be approved. The average space at Iron Fireman is around 5,000 feet, but get as small as 1,000 square feet. Folks interested in Iron Fireman are companies in early growth mode. They typically need space sooner than what I described earlier, and need to feel fairly certain they'll get accepted under the zoning to make that kind of commitment to the project. Modern day industrial companies, particularly in early growth stages, incorporate quite a bit of office space for collaboration. In the end, we achieved our goal at Iron Fireman, and we love the 20 tenants we have. But if the zoning were more flexible, we could have finished sooner and been able to give growth companies the kind of space they needed to achieve that growth in a more timely and certain fashion.
Will? Next slide. I'm Will Short with SKB also. We're a Portland-based real estate owner and operator, and this is our home. Our work focuses on reimagining existing commercial and industrial buildings as modern employment campuses, places where people create, design, build, and collaborate every day. We've taken our Portland-centric mindset and applied it across the West Coast in cities that understood something important. When zoning evolves with the way people actually work, buildings come back to life. In Seattle, San Francisco, San Leandro, Oakland, Novato, Phoenix, Denver, again and again, we took underused properties and turn them into places filled with energy, jobs, and innovation. Not by changing what those places are, but by allowing them to adapt. These projects succeed for a simple reason. Work today does not happen in a silo. Production, design, research, and collaboration increasingly happen together, and zoning has to allow that to occur. Portland already has the talent, the creativity, and the tremendous building stock to do this exceptionally well. Iron Fireman and so many others like it show the demand is real. What we're asking for is flexibility that keeps employment districts strong while allowing them to function in a modern economy. Cities that embrace this approach attract investment, retain jobs, and build resilient futures. Cities that do not risk watching opportunities move elsewhere. We know how to do this because we've done it elsewhere, and we want to bring those lessons home. Portland has almost always led by adapting early, and I'm confident that this can be one of those moments. Thank you.
So in conclusion, we have this zone already. It's in Central East Side, and it's been very effective. It's a zone and a planned district overlay. We're asking you to take the planned district overlay and the zone, combine it into a zone that can be then applied through the industrial sanctuary policy throughout the city. Thank you.
Next up, we have Citlali Torres, Sharon Nasset, and Lynn Handlin. And I think I see Citlali.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission. My name is Ciclali Torres. I work at Verde, working to support communities and building environmental wealth. Environmental justice demands that communities most impacted by environmental harms are prioritized for support and at the forefront in decision-making. We believe that our planning should lay the path to a regenerative economy away from an extractive one. Driven by land use goals, the EOA's analytical purpose is simple. However, Goal 9 is sorely lacking any required action to consider community livability and health protection from the impacts of economic activity. We're regularly exposed here in Portland to cancerous diesel particulate matter concentrations that are 10 times higher than Oregon's health-based standards. And many communities, especially Black, Brown, and low-income neighbors, are exposed to even more, costing us billions of dollars annually. As sectors such as warehousing grow at any rate, the risks to human health and environmental justice grow. I'm glad to see the inclusion of a future community livability policy and a broader understanding of industrial growth opportunities at new and smaller scales. But this draft inadvertently suggests that site size is a determining factor in how impactful industrial activities can be, which isn't exactly reality. If the EOA uses a low livability scenario, it would be better suited to develop a threshold of intensity. It proposes buffer zones only at 500 feet only for larger sites, which can reduce conflict but ignore the dispersive nature of air pollutants. Existing regulations still fall short of considering the cumulative impacts of living next to many industrial facilities of differing sizes. So until these gaps are filled, the city can look beyond these tactics, warehouse rule. There's also a missed opportunity to demonstrate the value that residential areas serve to economic development, not only as an emerging job site designation, but simply as the place where workers rest and recharge. I urge the Commission to reconsider the selection of a low community livability scenario to high and do everything possible to ensure the protection of Portlanders from any risks to health and quality of life while our economy evolves. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon, I see you. See that you're unmuted, Sharon. Can you hear us? Okay, how about let's see Lynn Handlin? Could we invite you?
Hi, yes. Am I here?
Yes, you are.
Okay. My name is Lynn Handlin, and the EOA has proposed, the EOA proposed draft is selecting the low community livability scenario, and we really need the high community livability scenario. I mean, what good is economic opportunity if the community is suffering? That just doesn't work. Economic opportunity does not have to mean encouraging environmentally destructive industries. There are other businesses out there, as you've just heard from some people. Whose economic opportunity are we talking about? Are we talking about environmentally destructive industry owners? Think CEI hub people, or out-of-state corporations, which are all over the place? Or how about economic opportunity for environmentally friendly businesses? Think Green Acres versus the CEI hub. Think emphasizing clean energy and other green jobs. And just to note, clean energy does not mean so-called renewable fuels, which are anything but green or clean. They are disasters. So that just needs to not be a part of it. Economic opportunity without clean air, water, and land is just really not a good plan. It does not bode well for the future of Portland or the people that live here. We don't have to sacrifice livability for economic opportunity. Also, the earthquake thing, that really does need to be considered. Think Bhopal and Deepwater Horizon and other disasters that people knew could happen and nothing was done. And then, oh my, how bad. So let's not do that here. The earthquake safety needs to be incorporated into this process, which it kind of doesn't look like it has been. And last, trees. We need more trees, not fewer trees. And I'm happy that the tree code will be implemented in the industrial zones, I hope, but it needs to be much stronger. So let's, hoping you can do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Lynn. Sharon, can we try you again? I believe in us.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you. I'm so sorry, all this is so new. Thank you very much, members, for your presentation. I appreciate the fact that you have the 3 different areas and that you are looking at several concerns in those areas. I hope you start with a baseline and take that baseline to each of those areas, as people have pointed out before, air pollution and other things that apply to each of the 3 areas, so you have a baseline to start with. Oh, I should say, I am Sharon Nassett. I'm with the Economic Transportation Alliance. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. It started in 2011, and sorry. I would love to hear from anybody. I'm going to be sending in a list of what I think are ideas or solutions to many of the things that have been brought up here. And many of those ideas I have thought about for years, living out here in the North Portland area, not only having to do with transportation, but the fact that those large buildings out there, yes, the land needs to have things laying on it, other than trees, perhaps. But the tops of those buildings, there's no reason why they can't be farmed and used to make up for the fact that they can't do it on the land. And other ideas along that lane. So I'll be sending something in the next couple of days. If anybody in the public or your council looks at the solutions I'm sending, please contact me and say, hey, what are you thinking with this? Because many of these ideas I've thought in depth. As far as the infrastructure, Third Bridge Now, www.thirdbridgenow.org, a brand new freeway corridor bypass of I-5, similar to 405, was in the CRC as Regional Crossing 14. We connect our industrial areas together, and I'm here to say it, the Columbia River Crossing has never had a full inspection of the bridges. They cannot list what repairs are needed, what the cost of those repairs would be, the timing of those repairs, and why we are not repairing the bridge over replacing it.
Great, Sharon. I'm going to ask you to wrap up.
Thank you very much. As I said, I'll be sending in a list of ideas. I hope that you open this up to a town hall situation. And thank you again for being there.
Thank you very much. And if you weren't here earlier, you now have until February 3rd on the MAP app. Thank you. Next up, Jan Zuckerman, Bruce Nelson, and Marnie Glickman.
I just put a mint in my mouth. I'm chewing fast.
You're allowed to go second if you want.
Oh, I'm fine.
Spit it out.
Yeah, I spit it on the floor. Don't worry about it. Hi, I'm Jan Zuckerman. Thank you for this opportunity. The economic opportunities analysis is the key to opening the door to a future that embraces the interrelationship between nature and our communities. It can reshape this place we call home. The Willamette River has been referred to as our lifeline, and after 100 years of degradation, it took a federal mandate to force us to clean it up. While our state goals were created to balance industrial growth with environmental protections, far too long our city government has allowed the balance to tip towards industry built on unstable land without the common sense to foresee the harm to the health and well-being of communities and economic stability. With this EOA, we have the chance to get it right. This means that the EOA must incorporate high community livability to ensure that economic development is for the people, not stuck in unsustainable practices from the past. The EOA must not limit protections for industrial development only on sites larger than 5 acres, because as we all know, size doesn't matter when it comes to pollution. The EOA must prepare for the transition to a green economy, not further Trump's plans to ignore the climate. The EOA must prioritize tribal consultation and our obligation to treaty rights to protect salmon who depend on healthy rivers, because we are all salmon people. The EOA must use science to determine the amount of riparian zone necessary to protect our waterways, our airshed, limit heat islands, and protect against floods. This means changing the paradigm of infrastructure versus green infrastructure to an infrastructure that is intrinsically life-affirming. As an environmental educator, I spent years with students monitoring riparian zones on many of Portland's creeks and rivers. A few years ago, I took a tour with students on the North Reach of the Willamette via boat to observe the riparian zone, and it brought us to tears. The EOA can and must embody the kind of economic opportunity that supports life and sends a strong message to our children that they can dry their eyes because we care about their quality of life. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bruce Nelson. I'm here on behalf of Trees for Life Oregon. If you look at a heat map of Portland, you can see that the heat goes right along with major roadways. Columbia Boulevard is one of those. Columbia Boulevard is also adjacent to many neighborhoods that have a very low canopy, below the desired canopy for the city. You also have industrial areas which have a lower requirement for canopy. You also have the expected growth in the industrial areas is going to be in logistics and transportation. Drive along Columbia Boulevard between 33rd and go to about Interstate Avenue. You're going to go past FedEx, Amazon, which is replacing the Portland Raceway, the horse thing. It's amazing. Then you have TriMet also putting their place in the post office. All of those are vehicles. These are all adjacent to low-income neighborhoods. These are all along Columbia Boulevard. This is industrial development. Industry, they have a lot of parking lots. That's collected heat. That's concrete. Industry, we need it. We need the growth of jobs there. I appreciate having job opportunities for people who don't want to go to college or are unable to. But we also need an industry that is looking forward, and they look at their land and how they steward it, how they landscape it, how they take care of the trees there. That is not incompatible with industry. But I don't think the EOA really asks that much of industry. So for all those neighbors who live in all those neighborhoods adjacent to the industrial lands, that's along the Willamette and the Columbia Boulevard. Those are all low-income neighborhoods, except on the west side. We need more. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marnie Glickman. I'm the Executive Director of Braided River Campaign and a registered lobbyist. Our EOA Community Coalition is growing quickly, and tonight we remember our friend and conservation leader, Bob Salinger. Our common vision for our city and the EOA is to create a regenerative, just, and equitable economy, and I'm here to share a few of our collective positions. Good jobs are the key to economic opportunities. Good jobs have livable wages and not middle wages. We do not believe that middle wage jobs lead workers and their families out of poverty. Please seek more evidence that middle wage jobs provide advancement opportunities, equitable benefits, and safety. We've not seen sufficient data to support this assertion. Our labor partners have not even heard of the term middle wage. We request that you find the source for the assertion on page 99 that industrial businesses generate substantial ripple effects. Each manufacturing job supports up to 4 additional jobs. Likewise, we ask you to determine the ripple effects of all other sectors. The EOA must align with all economic policies in the comp plan, not just the 6 selected by BPS. On page 7 and 8, we request that you add 4 comp policies. 6.28, East Portland job growth. 6.29 poverty reduction, 6.30 disparity reduction, 6.31 minority-owned, woman-owned, and emerging small business assistance. Finally, we ask that you include recommendations to promote equity that were supported by Camille Turner's key findings report commissioned by BPS. Ooh, speaking fast. She developed these findings after conducting 7 60-minute interviews with BIPOC subject matter experts in Portland. Thank you for your service and thank BPS for all your hard work.
Thank you all. Up next, Micah Mescal, Lynn Felton, and Cherise Bach.
Hi, Chair Routh and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Micah Mescal, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the Bird Alliance of Oregon and our 10,000 plus members in the Portland Metro. My organization is engaged in the development of the city's EOA updates now for over a decade. Our efforts were led by my late colleague, Bob Salinger, who initially observed a process largely held behind closed doors, led by industrial landowners, developers, and industry consultants, with the end product being a fairly myopic vision that centered on the city continually producing new land to allow for industrial growth and expansion without much consideration of other community priorities and often to the detriment of the environment. Bob wholeheartedly objected to the claim that we can't have both a healthy environment and a thriving economy and persistently pushed the city for a more holistic approach. When I took his place on the EOA Collaborative Working Group in late 2024, I used that as a guiding principle. A year later, the proposed draft of the EOA charts a path to achieve both. We've collectively reimagined a different way, represented in the proposed draft, that balances economic growth and prosperity with innovation and protecting and stewarding our natural resources for the benefit of people, wildlife, and economy. And this holistic strategy in the proposed draft demonstrates that there's more than enough industrial land to meet the city's current and future growth projections. This is important as previous EOAs with different land constraint scenarios had either been used to weaken or delay environmental protections in North Portland that the rest of the city has been able to benefit from, perpetuating a century of environmental racism. And this EOA allows for the city to reverse course and finally move towards implementing these protections. It allows us to finally move forward on a North River Plan, the last leg of a citywide process that should enact adequate buffers along the river. It will allow for trees and heavy industrial lands to finally be required and protected. And I'll speak more to the embedded CCIL protections later tonight. And I'll remind all of us that all of these policies are currently in place in all other geographies in the city except North Portland. Two key places that this plan can be improved. The community livability scenario should shift to high to allow more targeted and protective policy creation that better reduces and buffers adjacent residential zones from industrial uses along the Columbia Corridor. This EOA should also make it very clear to Salem that we need to take a regional approach to future EOA updates. And lastly, I'll be submitting more substantive comments before the written deadline.
Oh my God, thank you.
Oh, hello, Chair, Commissioners. Lynn Felton, East Portland resident. I would like to tell you an East Portland story, East Columbia or Columbia Corridor East. It is often said there was disinvestment in East Portland when the city annexed us in the 80s. That is true. It is also true that investment with intent took place. The industrial land that was in the Pearl and South Waterfront moved to the newly annexed areas east of the airport where farmland existed. Outer East made modern Portland possible. It did not bring prosperity and better health outcomes to these new Portlanders in East Portland. Now, 50 years later, this EOA is presenting an illusionary prosperity for middle-wage job earners in East Portland. Logistics is supposed to provide these middle-wage jobs. Do any of us believe that warehouse jobs and truck driving jobs are going to exist in 2045? It's fiction. Data from 2009-2018 does not reflect real future job growth in this sector. Automation, AI, will wipe out these jobs. We will have a forest of warehouses in East Portland, jobs gone, land used, and hand-wringing why there is not economic prosperity in East Portland. We have been here before. We are here now. And we're kind of tired of this type of economic planning for East Portland. Please, open the EOA back up and use realistic job growth estimates in logistics to provide real jobs, real uses for the land in the Columbia Corridor, and real equity for all Portland. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to comment tonight. I'm Cherise Bach. I'm the Climate Policy Director representing 350 PDX, which is a local nonprofit that organizes thousands of Portlanders concerned about environment and climate justice. Thank you also for extending the written comment period. We really appreciate that and appreciate BPS for laying out the different scenarios and information clearly to show that we have land available, what else is needed, and to try to listen to all the voices in Portland. So hitting the high points in my 2 minutes here, we think it's really important that we create both equitable economic opportunity and protect our climate and environment at the same time, and we think that we can do that through making smart policy choices. We have the exciting opportunity through the EOA to shape the climate-friendly economy that we want to see in 2045, beginning now to create pathways to adjust transition to a sustainable community. I'd like to remind us there's no economy on a dead planet. The last 3 years are the hottest 3 years on record. The science isn't going to change just because we don't think it's politically or economically feasible to adapt to the climate and to mitigate the harm. As we hold the global situation in mind, let's consider how the EOA can contribute positively. We do have enough industrial land, so why would we not pursue the high scenarios for community livability and environmental protection? The proposed draft only suggests low community livability and medium environmental protection. An economy is there to support the community. It should create a place that's enjoyable and healthy to live. So we hope that future iterations, whatever we do propose in this EOA, will build pathways to green jobs through training programs that we're already working on in different portions of Portland's bureaus, and be able to make those pathways and workforce ready. I think I will save the rest of it for my written comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you. And our last four before we close this and take a very short break, if we may. Jamie Johnson, and online Debbie Iona, and Jeremy Smith, and Sarah Taylor. Welcome.
Good evening. Oh, is it on? Is it on?
Try it now.
Good evening.
Yes.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Jamie Johnson. I'm a staff attorney at the Green Energy Institute at Lewis and Clark Law School here in Portland. GEI works to support a just and equitable clean energy transition for all Oregonians through law and policy. I am commenting today to ask you to center community health and climate impacts in a final economic opportunity analysis. More specifically, GEI is concerned with the city's focus in the EOA on development around warehousing activities. In line with recent e-commerce growth and based on the city's own modeling, as we saw, the EOA has identified transportation and warehousing as a key area of job and economic growth over the coming years. Warehousing activities, though, means more trucks and more diesel emissions. Diesel emissions, in addition to the devastating public health impacts, are also powerful climate contributors, both producing more carbon per gallon than gasoline and emitting black carbon, a highly potent, short-lived climate pollutant. GEI worries that allowing warehousing growth without first addressing the climate and health harms that these warehousing hubs can bring to Portland communities will prove detrimental. The EOA should support Portland's comprehensive plan, which includes a myriad of climate commitments, including a commitment to reduce carbon emissions by 50% below 1990 levels by 2035, and to promote sustainable development. We echo others and suggest pursuing a warehousing indirect source rule as an industrial policy to reduce emissions from these future warehousing activities. An indirect source rule could directly reduce diesel emissions in the communities surrounding these future e-commerce hubs, thereby reducing direct harms that this area of economic growth could bring. Other cities and communities are already pursuing or exploring warehousing and direct source rules, including California jurisdictions and the City of New York. And so we ask the Commission in this EOA to consider proactive policies like a warehouse rule that can support Portland's climate and public health commitments while also acknowledging that warehouse development will occur. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Debbie.
Hello, I'm Debbie Iona, representing the League of Women Voters of Portland. The League supports Portland's economic development efforts with an emphasis on quality and number of jobs, return on public investment, a healthful environment, creation and preservation of open spaces, equity, and neighborhood revitalization. We also believe in conservation and wise management of natural resources. We are encouraged to see that the EOA proposed draft and the scenarios described in the September 2025 report demonstrate that the city has sufficient industrial land to meet the 20-year demand without sacrificing the environment. The League strongly encourages you to recommend maximum protection measures for natural resources, a high level of neighborhood livability measures, and investment in brownfield cleanup infrastructure and freight access. We recognize that the city's financial situation may present challenges for public investment, but these actions are key to unlocking the land needed for jobs and should be implemented to the extent possible. We support maximum resource protection in the Columbia Corridor and a minimum 50-foot Willamette Greenway setback along the North Reach. We are pleased to see that the proposed draft includes an implementation strategy that supports home-based childcare and lists Multnomah County as a key partner. Preschool for All offers an opportunity to site programs in residential areas that will boost employment and business ownership and support parental participation in the workforce. In 2024-25, over 75% of the small center and family child care sites have owners or directors that identify as BIPOC. The League encourages you to also recommend more rigorous policies to protect existing industrial land from political and market pressure for conversion to other uses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeremy.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Beausoleil Smith. Portland's urgent needs for housing, good jobs, schools, and riverfront green space are incompatible with locking prime riverfront land into long-term hazardous fuel storage and heavy industry. Beginning the just transition now allows the city to shift land use and workforce planning towards safer, more resilient uses that create lasting community benefits instead of future liabilities. This economic opportunities analysis will define Portland's commitment to climate action, environmental justice, and community safety for decades to come. We must choose a path that protects future generations, wildlife, and our river. A vision must be created for the North Reach, reflecting community needs for clean air, water, and soil, a place respectful of the environment and wildlife, not contributing to climate chaos. We can make Portland a model for a climate-friendly city, prioritizing an economy of care and a just transition. When fossil fuels are no longer profitable, the corporations operating out of the North Reach will move on, leaving us with acres of brownfields, defunct holding tanks, and one of the most polluted harbors in the country. We need an economic opportunities analysis that prioritizes Portlanders and institutes the strongest possible protections for our air, water, habitats, wildlife, and our people. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sarah Taylor, and I'm with the Braided River Campaign, and I was on this committee from the start. Bob encouraged me to join. I have spent the last few years really studying North Portland and the industrial areas, the histories. I drive around, I look at it, and I would encourage everybody to drive around and look at it. Go drive and look at near Delta Park and the slough. Go look. Anyway, I just want to say that as a member of that committee, I feel like there's been progress, but I don't feel like we were really asked what we thought. I'm a former principal, a healthcare worker, and I don't believe that I was just ever asked in an open way, Sarah, what do you think? I asked many times that the people who are going to inherit this plan, the students and their educators, be asked what they want their economic opportunities to be, and it never happened. So I would like in the next 30 days that we pull together a group of educators and students, people who will inherit this plan, and ask them what they think. I would also like to say this plan is not written for the BIPOC community. There's nobody that we never heard from anybody who said that this was best for them. If they say that, I accept it, but they never said it, and I never heard them be asked. So I have said repeatedly, I think it is really disrespectful to include this. I want to say that I sympathize with a person from East Portland. All of the industrial areas were annexed. Linton was annexed, St. John's was annexed. As soon as we're annexed, we become a CI hub. As soon as we're annexed, we lose the ability to fish, and our fish are poisoned. I want a one-page, well, I guess I'll write the rest of it to you. So I have a list of things that I would like done in the next 30 days.
Please include it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all. We did it. That concludes our economic opportunity analysis hearing. We are going to close this agenda item for the moment, but it will be continued to the February 10th meeting for a work session. We are now closing oral testimony, but again, written testimony, and deep thanks again to staff for making this possible and doing all the logistics. Written testimony will be will be open until February 3rd at 5 p.m. I'll just say, if you heard something today and you want to amend or include more testimony, you don't have to just do it once. You can include some more. So please do so. I would love us to take a 5-minute break. Is that enough? Okay, a 5-minute break. It's really going to mean 7. We'll see you in a bit. Thank you. right, team, we're coming back. Get settled so that, Jeff can get out of here. All right, welcome back to part 2 of our evening's Planning Commission. Up next, the Columbia Corridor. Wow, we are 2 minutes late. We're doing so well, team. Columbia Corridor and Industrial Lands Environmental Overlay Zone Project hearing. And to kick us off, would love Jeff Cottle and Daniel Subbing to come up if you felt like it, or if you just want to hang out behind. And a short presentation from staff, and then we will hear from testimony again. Jeff, take us away.
Okay, so hello. Yeah, and Daniel will be available with questions. We have a relatively short presentation tonight, so just, I'm Jeff Cottle. I manage the River Environmental Team at Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and so we have been working on this project for a number of years. And just a reminder that we aren't going to go into the extensive description that the EOA went into because we did our briefing on December 2nd. This is really just, there's a few slides here to follow up on some of the questions that I think in terms of our response to some of the questions that came up in the briefing, and really to hopefully prepare all of you for any amendments that you want to make after you hear from people tonight. So really it's just sort of laying out the ways in which we have gone about our natural resource protection approach, a little bit of background in terms of the summary of the project to revisit what we covered in the briefing. And then really looking at those considerations for the environmental zone if we wanted to modify the environmental, if the proposal was to modify any of the environmental zone that's in the proposed draft. And then we'll open it for questions before the hearing. So just briefly, kind of the highlight of what the project is. Really, we're modifying and taking a new look at environmental zones within the project area, and I'll show you the map here in a sec. To support those changes, we have zoning code amendments that are proposed, and then also there's some minor refinements to the methodology for how we apply those environmental zones and evaluate natural resources. So this is the area, primarily the Columbia Corridor Industrial Lands Project is the corridor, so between the Columbia Slough all the way north to the Columbia River. There are a few, if you see along the Willamette there, actually sort of bordering the north reach of the Willamette River, there are a few properties where there are proposals for environmental zones, and then a parcel down in Johnson Creek. So those areas were previously included in the E-zone map correction project that was adopted in 2023, 22. But we had pulled out these different properties because they were industrial. So really everything else in the city that was subject to the environmental zones was part of that 2022 project, and now we are here addressing the industrial areas and some miscellaneous along the edges of the industrial area. And just as a reminder, we covered this on our December 2nd briefing, but this is what what the proposal is basically we adopt the Columbia Corridor Industrial Lands E-zone project. There are a number of natural resource plans that really set out the inventories and the protections for natural resources that exist in the project area. So we replaced those with the details really in volume 2 and for the natural resource protection plan. So those replace what's existing. The modifications to the environmental zone update the zoning maps. We do some minor amendments to natural resource inventory, and then as we talked about, there's zoning code updates, primarily in the environmental zones, chapter 33-430, but a couple of others as well, and also the Columbia South Shore Plan District. We won't go into the details of those tonight, but just wanted to, again, in terms of preparation and just understanding, I think Commissioner Knowles, last time it was a question about sort of where to start. So we wanted to just go through what we have in the proposals for the project, and then again talk through some of those different levers that we have used in terms of our evaluation of the E-zone application. So what we covered in the briefing is really this baseline natural resource protection, and that was In the discussion draft, we had 3 different scenarios. We did not have a proposed scenario at that time. And from the input and analysis that we did on those 3 different options, we came to this proposal, which is really primarily focused protection zone, our most strict environmental zone on the actual resource itself, plus a 50-foot buffer around streams, sloughs, and wetlands. Beyond that, we would apply the conservation zone to the high and medium, what we rank as in the natural resource inventory as high and medium ranked riparian resources. For wetlands that are beyond 50 feet from streams and sloughs and other waterways, we would apply the conservation zone instead of the protection zone, which is less stringent, would potentially allow for development if there's nowhere else to put that development. And then we have the incorporation of the floodplain requirements for primarily within that 170 feet. Really only the addition, the amendment is for the 170 feet from ordinary high water that is part of the FEMA biological opinion, our response to the FEMA biological opinion. So again, in terms of the context for that proposal, we had these 3 different scenarios with the low, medium, and high, really different levels of protection and primarily different applications of the protection zone, that more strict environmental zone. So in the low scenario, essentially the idea was that we were applying the protection zone only to the resource itself, no buffers for protection zone. And then conservation zone went on to all the other resources. So a 30-foot buffer around waterways and wetlands, and then to any other high-ranking resources that are outside the actual resource itself. Medium scenario, included a 25-foot protection overlay zone buffer, and then beyond that, where the wetlands beyond 50 feet, where we included this as where we applied the conservation zone to those wetlands in the medium, as compared to the protection overlay zone. But then outside of that 25-foot buffer that was in the protection zone, all of the high and medium ranking riparian resources received the conservation overlay zone. The high or the maximum protection scenario had that 50-foot buffer that is part of our proposed draft E-zone application that is in the document now. And then beyond that, really focused on the high and medium, and it actually included some low-ranking riparian resources through our natural resources inventory. As a part of the proposed draft proposal, we do not apply any of the conservation overlay zone to the low-ranking resources. So that was these were our 3 different options that we presented as a part of the discussion draft to the public, and then we came to our recommendation. So really what we have with the proposed draft recommendation is really a medium plus, because we start with that 50-foot buffer and then incorporate the wetland policy and a slightly really focusing on the high and the medium ranked resources and not the low that was in the high scenario. So one thing that we didn't cover in the briefing was we did make some area-specific natural resource protection decisions. That is part of Goal 5, which is the statewide planning goal that we need to comply with for natural resources. One of the mechanisms that you can apply to address specific situations within an area or within natural resources is to look at we do an ESEE analysis, economic, social, environment, and energy analysis. And through that analysis, you can modify what your protections are based on the conditions on the ground. So you can see there are 5 different areas where we had a slightly different approaches as compared to that baseline. Everywhere else where we didn't have these special changes, we just apply the baseline that we talked about. So in that, again, to provide a little bit more detail about how we have addressed these different areas, and again, in terms of just for your knowledge as we move forward with potential recommended changes. So for the Columbia South Shore, if you remember in the briefing, we talked that we are removing the environmental, we basically proposing to delete the environmental protections from the Columbia South Shore Plan District and apply the 33430, the environmental zones, the environmental overlay zones chapter that is applied to most of the city. But in recognition of the more stringent requirements that are part of that Columbia South Shore plan district, we maintain where there are existing, we're really focused on this, in this case, where there are existing environmental zones. If there's an existing protection zone, we kept that even if the baseline scenario would the baseline recommendation would tell us to change it to something else. So if it was a protection zone, we kept that. And then beyond that protection zone, where there's conservation zone or where there is no conservation zone at the edge of the protection zone, we're adding a 25-foot conservation zone buffer. And that, if you remember, we talked about it in December, is to recognize there's a transition area for all of our environmental zones. That first 25 feet in an environmental zone is essentially a buildable zone. The only thing really that is applied there is tree replacement. And so to, again, carry over the current intent and, sort of rigid nature of those requirements in the Columbia South Shore, when we go to the environmental overlay zones chapter, we add that transition zone so that where there are existing E-zones now, it will continue to serve as a resource area where real requirements apply. For the Columbia River, it's been longstanding policy, given the nature of the development along the Columbia River, to not apply the protection zone there. And so we essentially, so this includes Hayden Island as well. So in that case, to carry over that and in recognition of the depth of those lots and the types of development that are along the Columbia, we are only applying the conservation zone there. Again, and sort of the same things with floodplain requirements would still apply in terms of those additional mitigation requirements, et cetera. And anything beyond, that 50 foot, within 50 feet of the river, we would still, for the high and medium, still apply the conservation zone. So there are a couple of other unique situations. So the city of Portland historically has agreements with the Port of Portland in terms of how we have applied environmental zones. Specifically, the first one is around the airport, around PDX, because of the need to make sure there's birds and other considerations in the airport, around the airport, around the airport. We came to an agreement late 90s. Not even that late, 2011, that basically, and maybe this is why Daniel should be here, but essentially no environmental zones are applied in this, and it's a specific resource area. No environmental zones are applied there, but that agreement allowed for and required a mitigation on Government Island in the Columbia River, the island that's in the Columbia River to east of PDX. And so that's that agreement. We maintain that agreement, and so we're not changing the environmental zones on the airport itself. The Portland International Center. Late 90s, there was another, and there's an environmental review that established that basically for the International Center, only the conservation zone would be applied. And so other than a newly identified wetland site that was a mitigation site where we would apply protection zone, we are not applying any protection zone to that area, and it's strictly focused on conservation, on the conservation overlay zone. And then for the Willamette Escarpment, which is basically the bluff on the, if you saw on the map, the bluff on the east side of the Willamette River, there are some natural resources there that don't currently have environmental zones, and again, adjacent to the North Reach. And so we are now applying both protection zone and conservation zone more consistent with what we had applied in the based in the East Buttes protection plan, which again sort of carries the same approach that we use in the EZO map correction project, which was taking existing policy and applying it, rather than an entirely new policy decision. So it's a rather narrow area there on the bluff that we would just be looking to that existing plan, natural resources plan. So just a couple of considerations. There's a few slides here just to kind of step through different considerations you might have, and also to lay out how we have applied, what the steps we have taken on individual properties. So one consideration is, and and it'd probably be helpful, you can look at revisit this, looking at the presentation, but this is, we've taken this, it's the base zones, but we've grouped them. So you can see the darker gray is the heavy industrial zone. The lighter gray is our general industrial zones, both IG1 and IG2. And then also general employment. So there are three zones that we expect industrial development to occur. That's the IH, the IG2, and the EG2 zones. But this shows you the distribution of those, where those particular zones and those types of uses are, those zones are. In addition, we've identified, you can see the green is open space. So those are the open space areas of various types throughout the corridor. And then there's a little bit, as you can see, of residential that's sprinkled throughout. And obviously, there's a little bit higher density development that's and commercial development that's on Hayden Island. So that could be a consideration in terms of how and we do have on this map there, you can see we have resource sites. So, as we covered in the briefing, we take the entire area and we break it into resource sites so it's manageable. And that's how we also take into account those specific conditions in those resource sites and come up and determine whether it's the area specific ESE is necessary or appropriate. So we also showed this in the briefing. So just a reminder, this is the big thing that you have control over, that we have control over from in terms of the project is, do we apply the protection zone? Do we apply the conservation zone? And if we do, what are those buffers? So that's really the critical piece of, and the decisions that we are making here. And we just wanted to sort of, again, for context, step through, this is an area within the corridor, and really stepping through just to sort of really visually show the stepwise process from sort of the three different discussion draft scenarios and then our proposed draft and what it means on the ground. And so you can see on the left here is existing, this is the existing E-zones, the environmental overlay zones. And you can see we've also, for reference on the existing, we've placed we show the wetlands and water bodies, so basically wetlands and streams on there. And you can see this is the part of the project that is trying to address the areas that have been missed with the environmental zones, right? So there are natural resources here that don't currently have environmental zones. To the right is when you apply the low scenario, again, really focus the protection zone on the resource itself, and then some conservation overlay zone around it. And then to the left here is the medium, again, as we're stepping through, and there is one of the areas that, well, maybe I'll just wait till the end. But so this is the medium that, again, apply that 25-foot protection zone, and then for any resources that were outside of that 25, there was a conservation overlay zone and floodplains, et cetera. And then on the same side to the right is where we're talking about that 50-foot buffer, and then only outside of that 50-foot buffer around those waterways and wetlands are we applying the conservation overlay zone to those specific situations. So in our proposed application of the environmental zone, again, it's sort of this medium plus. So you can see the dark green is the protection zone that on the resource plus the 50-foot buffer, and then conservation zone. But wanted to highlight that, so you can see here on the bottom sort of left side, there were areas that were in the high scenario along, it's showing here along the road there, along Fazio Way. That's one of those situations where it was a low-ranked resource, and we are not applying the environmental zones at all in those areas. In the area here at the top along Gertz, there's a couple of changes there was one manual change from a protection zone to a conservation zone, and we mentioned this in the briefing, where there are situations where the application of a protection zone, again, that strict protection zone, would cause issues with access or things like that. We have done our best to do a comprehensive review of sites and to identify where those would be issues and then apply the conservation zone. The isolated wetlands there on the top right are really those wetlands that are greater than 50 feet. That's kind of how we look at those wetlands that are greater than 50 feet from a waterway. We call them sort of isolated wetlands, so they're not directly connected to the waterway, although they of course, do serve and end up in different waterways. And then just showing that 50-foot P zone buffer. And then in the memo that we provided, just wanted this, so we have been doing site-specific adjustments as necessary based on, and we'll have a slide here in a sec, based on site visits and things, but this is an example, again, on the left is a site along there, along the Forest Park, on that strip of area where we are proposing environmental zones, and that, so following the methodology, the baseline methodology, where the red circle is would have caused issues in terms of access to the site. And so again, it's another example where we change that and apply the conservation overlay zone to make it to where it doesn't prohibit use of the site, but still gets protection through the conservation overlay zone. And then just a little bit, so we have actually had a map up for site visits for property owners to request site visits. And when we do a site visit, we go out and just confirm all of that our natural resource inventory is accurate for the site. If it's not accurate, we update it in our natural resources inventory. And then when you apply those different criteria that are the different scenarios, you then apply either protection zone or conservation zone, depending on what is mapped there. So prior to the proposed draft, we did 50 different site visits. Partly, we did some of those as a part of the map correction project from 2022, because at that time it was assumed that we would do the industrial properties as well. Ended up pulling out the industrial properties, but we still had those site visits that had been done. Since the proposed draft, we've done an additional 8 site visits, and we actually have 6 more scheduled. We will continue, as we did with the map error correction project. We'll continue to do site visits, but what we're asking is to have, for this proposed draft, to have a deadline. Anyone who's listening here can request an additional site visit. We're just asking to have those scheduled by January 28th. So then we could, if needed, have it as amendments as we move forward, and they can provide testimony by February 3rd. And then we can respond. But we'll have a similar process when we get to council. So we assume, again, we can continue to do site visits, and where we think changes are warranted, we will make them. But I think it would be best for us to handle these for now. We will continue to do site visits and then bring out another set as relevant to City Council. And that is all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, on that last item, which is great doing these site visits, we already have in written testimony several is a letter of testimony equivalent to requesting a site visit, if that's basically what they're asking for? Or do we have to flag those?
We don't have to do a site visit necessarily for all of those. Yeah, to your point, and thanks for raising that, because I was going to raise it. So for those that you will, in testimony, you will see a lot of site-by-site requests and issues that they have raised. So we don't have to do a site visit if we feel it's necessary, or I can't tell from looking at the site that are the issues that are raised and we can't resolve them. We will happy to do a site visit, but also given whatever requests we receive, we'll go through each of those that are site-specific and do an evaluation. And I expect when we come back, which I guess we're coming back maybe February 24th, whatever, when the next one we come on that's focused on the CCIL, we'll have a response to all those site-specific requests and let you tell us what to do from there, but basically give our interpretation of all of the particular requests that come from testimony.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And thank you, Vice Chair Spivak. That was my question too. For the purpose of being able to hear testimony, are there any other clarifying questions that we have at this time? Sorry, from commissioners. But Martha, will get to you. Commissioner Diefendorfer?
Chair Routh, I just wanted to remind you to ask for disclosures.
Yeah. Okay, great. Then we are going to slip into testimony. And before we do so, are there any items of disclosures from commissioners?
I work in private sector, and sometimes our clients have projects within that would probably be affected by this.
Okay, We'll start oral testimony. Remember all of the words that I said at the beginning of the last one? IBID. It's the same. I would love, again, 2 minutes per testimony, and we'll start off the first three. Heather King, Martha Johnston, and Dan Eisenweiss. We're just gonna, Heather, are you?
I'm here. Yeah, I can go. All right. Good evening again. My name is Heather King. I'm the co-executive director and Lower Willamette Riverkeeper for Willamette Riverkeeper. The Columbia Corridor, bordered by two rivers, the Willamette and the Columbia Slough, is home to vital natural resources, including wetlands and floodplains, and is the only wildlife corridor in North Portland. The critical ecosystem functions in these areas. The critical ecosystem functions in these areas provides such as flood protection, water filtration, and habitat cannot be fully replaced once they're destroyed. The CCIL Environmental Overlay Zone proposal combines the medium and high protection scenarios into a hybrid option. This does not go far enough. Natural areas in North Portland have long been ignored by public agencies when setting up environmental protections instead of focusing on growth of industry and the destruction and devastation of both ground and water throughout. The entire project area should receive the highest level of natural resource protection. Anything less continues a pattern of sacrificing environmental health and community safety for short-term development gains. Natural resources in the Columbia Corridor improve water quality, reduce stormwater runoff and erosion, and support fish and wildlife habitat. They also protect nearby properties and communities by reducing flooding, capturing runoff, and stabilizing slopes. These functions are essential to North Portland and must be protected to the fullest extent possible. In addition, the tree canopy must be increased in industrial areas along rivers and waterways. Expanded canopy improves climate resilience, protects public health in nearby fence line communities, and is necessary to comply with the Endangered Species Act by preventing harmful increases in water temperature for listed species. To further protect community health, industrial land should not be considered buildable within 500 feet of residences and schools. The project must also fully account for natural hazards, including seismic risk. A major earthquake would cause significant lateral spreading, subsidence, and slope failures along river and stream banks, and severe consequences if development is allowed in vulnerable areas. Finally, all sites must be required to maintain a 170-foot setback to comply with the 2025 flood hazard plan. There should be no blanket exemptions to this requirement. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony.
Thank you, Heather. Martha, you ready?
Yes, let me see here, if I can find that website here, chained with about 7 or 8 different segments. That's what we were sent to our neighborhood. Not sufficient. This area is not a scattering of homes in the Columbia Corridor. We have an established neighborhood association. Many before any industrial developer, very light industrial development, before we became in the city in the 70s. The Vanport flood, we're survivors of the Vanport flood in our community. So
Chair,
we still have houses.
Is her microphone on?
Sorry, is your microphone on? Sorry, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, great.
There we go.
Well, I
Sorry,
think
thank
you heard me anyway, but, well, I get my extra minute there, because we were thinking, we were told 3 minutes, so, in the writing, so, I'm sorry you did reduce that, because I think it's important that people can speak, but, what I'm trying to say is that we are doing well. This expansion of the E-zone is, into our neighborhood backyards and over some of the houses. It's overreaching and should be scaled back. In many places, this will cause severe economic restrictions. It will cause neighbors, myself included, many thousands of dollars in time and effort, and will probably prevent development, such as ADUs or garages. We have a housing crisis. We need ADUs and various different farm buildings. Our area tends to have very large lots, over 10,000 square foot, even though they're zoned R10. So we need that area. And like I said, in many places, the gobbledygook, I'm sorry, planners, but that was hard to follow, and I lived there in the wetlands. So we've done huge projects. The Columbia Children's Arboretum, we got that brought into the city as a city park. The Metro Flyway Wetlands, we got that done. The number one report on your list of reports was the Wetlands Management Plan, East Columbia, and we did that. That was our group that pushed that. We got animal corridors laid out as soon as we came into the city. We got good timing in there, so we got it in there, and the development has followed those incredibly. So we're hardworking. We love our trees, but dead trees need to be removed. We have a lot of widowmakers that cause a lot of damage, so those should be considered much more not as a tree part of the tree canopy. They should be removed. Let's see. Please review and reject the intrusions into our legally zoned lands unless this is made voluntary. Voluntary, go ahead. Myself and many neighbors facing this overreach would like to know why for this expansion is even necessary. And we'll work with the planning department, and we'd like to have a meeting out in our neighborhood. We didn't have a meeting in our neighborhood.
Could we say what before we depart? What is could you say your name for the record? And what is
Martha
your
Johnston.
neighborhood? And what is your neighborhood?
East Columbia neighborhood.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you very much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Come on out and visit.
Chair Routh, members of the commission, hello again. For the record, my name is Dan Eisenbeis. I'm Regional Affairs Manager with the Port of Portland and a registered city lobbyist. You'll also find written testimony from the Port on the MAP app. We appreciate having had the opportunity to discuss the CCIL project with city staff, as well as staff addressing a number of the Port's comments on the discussion draft. We respectfully request that you consider the following requests. First, please sequence action on the EOA ahead of moving forward with the CCIL. The ultimate outcome of the EOA will have implications for other planning projects, including the CCIL. Second, regarding site-specific issues, we request that proposed P-zones be removed from wetlands greater than 50 feet from streams and from low-quality resources on port-owned sites. There are proposed P-zones on such sites, which deviates from the baseline mapping as well as the summary that you heard just now from staff. We also request that mapping remove or modify proposed E-zones on two sites known as the J-Lot and Settle Road site, respectively, which are both east of Terminal 6, where increased E-zones would result in significant challenges to future development of these sites. Third, we request an exemption or modification of the proposed color temperature standard for exterior lighting associated with river-dependent or river-related uses, so to allow for safe and efficient nighttime operations at marine terminals. Fourth, we request revisions to exempt river-dependent or river-related uses from certain development standards to align with FEMA's definition of beneficial gain for implementation of the NFIP BIOP. And lastly, we request that you add the port to an exemption that was approved under the Public Infrastructure Environmental Code project for operation, maintenance, repair, and replacement of drainage facilities, flood control structures, and conveyance channels. The port has responsibility for certain such facilities, and the Urban Flood Safety and Water Quality District supports extending the exemption to other public agencies. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Great. And next up, and again, I'm sorry if I have mispronounced your name, Matthew Borghardt, Peter Berry, and Jacob Reimer. Matthew?
Thank you very much. My name is Matthew Borghardt. I'm with Jordan Ramus PC. I represent the owners and lessees of 5 sites that are affected by this overlay project. I want to keep my comments brief as much as I can, but there's a few sites here to go through. So we represent BHGAH RAD PDX LLC. They're the owners and operators of the Radisson by the airport. The site is known as 6233 Northeast 78th Court. It's zoned for general employment and is in prime industrial overlay as well as the airport plan overlay. So it can be used for certain commercial uses like hotels and also for industrial use. Currently, the site, it borders the Whitaker Slough to the north, and there's a conservation overlay on the Whitaker Slough, and there's a pond just south of that that's landscaped and is part of the grounds of the hotel. It is partially protected by the conservation overlay as well. But the current proposal has the entire pond becoming part of the environmental protection overlay, which then has the buffer, which will cut the hotel in half lengthwise. So because the site tapers, if there was going to be any kind of redevelopment for hotel purposes or an industrial development, the various setbacks, environmental reviews make it so that there'd be very little land that could even be economically feasible to redevelop. And in the short and medium term, maintaining the hotel is going to be a lot more difficult to do. There's also a restaurant on the site, and between the two entities, it employs dozens of people. So we're asking you not to extend the protection zone on this site. The second site that I'd like to discuss is owned by BHGAH Airport LLC, and there are several lessees that operate the Red Lion. There's a parking lot that's going to get a conservation easement, and we'd like you not to do that. And additionally, SPII LLC has several industrial sites that are currently protected but are going to be almost subsumed by the P zone, and we're asking you not to apply that either. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yeah. Peter? How about Jacob?
Yep.
Great.
Is this on? Okay, yeah, there we go. Good evening, Chair Ruth and Commissioners. My name is Jacob Reimer. I'm an attorney at Cosgrave Regier Kester, and I represent Hartman Property and Development LLC, which owns the real property located at 9317 North Peninsular Avenue. My testimony is being provided to request an amendment to the proposed expansion of the environmental protection zone on that property and ensure that Hartman's current and historic use of the property for the storage of raw steel, including within the proposed environmental protection zone, will continue to be allowed as a permitted use. The entire portion of the proposed environmental protection zone overlay that borders the south side of the Columbia Slough between North Portland Road to the west and northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard to the east follows the tree line that borders the south side of the Columbia Slough. The sole exception in that section of the Columbia Slough is Hartman's property at 9317 North Peninsular Ave. Instead of following the tree line bordering the Columbia Slough, the proposed environmental protection zone overlay runs from the tree line on the property to the east, where it intersects with Hartman's property line, and then cuts directly west across 9317 North Peninsular Ave. The result of this is the northern third of 9317 North Peninsular being encompassed by the proposed environmental protection zone. Hartman currently uses, and its predecessors have historically used, the property for the storage of raw steel, and that is the intended future use of the property as well. Raw steel is a natural material that does not pose a risk to the natural resources that the city aims to protect. Therefore, we request that the Planning Commission amend the boundary of the proposed environmental protection zone overlay to follow the southern tree line of the Columbia Slough, as it has done for the vast majority of the surrounding properties that border the southern portion of the Columbia Slough, and would further like assurance from the Planning Commission that Hartman's current and historical use of the property for the storage of raw steel will continue to be allowed uninterrupted. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you both. Cheers. And next up, do we have a Peter Barry? Online or otherwise? Okay, we'll try to come back. Joshua Landry? Sorry, thank you. And hopefully on the phone, Russell Hartley, and again, Sharon Nassett. Go for it.
Am I up? Oh, hello,
up.
everyone.
At your leisure.
Feeling NIMBY, you know. My name is Joshua Landry. I live, work, and play on the Columbia River. I live in JBMI, where I'm a director, and I joined the board to kind of protect and also my neighbors who are primarily low income. And when I bought my house, I was also low income. And I bought my house with cash, a floating home, and I'm very proud of that. I beat my dad to home ownership, which was cool. But I live in a sanctuary, and the environmental overlays, unfortunately, will cut our uplands and create a place where we can't make any capital improvements. And that affects me and the others who changes like that will make it more expensive to live there and be prohibitive. And I've seen this happen with other mortgages where they couldn't replace a ramp because it was included in their environmental zone. So it's been a 15-year-old battle to put a ramp in. And so because of that, many of their people who lived there had to move. They couldn't age in place, and they had to move away because they couldn't ascend a grade that steep. But they finally got the permitting, which is a victory. Yeah, in terms of working on the river, I'm a American Boat Yacht Council master technician, so I work on boats, usually legacy systems. And the environmental overlay is also going to cut through a lot of our yards and a lot of smaller things, not the big guys, but the little guys. It's going to have a profound impact on them. And also for people who are looking to work on their boats by themselves, it will stymie that industry and prove deleterious to that. And also playing on the river, you know. Yeah, I think, I don't know. I think they had more things on there, but yeah, thank you for your time. So I think I got all the things. So I've never done this before. I took the night off work to be here. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you guys for consideration. So I know this has got to be tough and long. And there it is. I made my time up. So.
And if you think of anything more, we have until February 3rd.
Type it out. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you very much. And do we have Russell Hartley or Sharon Nassett? We do have Sharon. Oh, there you are. And Sharon, whenever you are able and technology allows you.
Hello.
We hear you.
Good. It takes a little while before it says unmute. Thank you very much. You know, the land, I actually am from North Portland and grew up here, and then I bought my home here in '88 and enjoy so much the area that we live in and the natural areas. We haven't, you know, done enough actually to, you can't say really enhance a natural area, but make areas where you can view and see the natural areas and then limit the other areas so that we don't ruin habitat and make them seeable but not necessarily accessible. Out here, you can't just make one rule that goes along the slough or any of the other. A lot of the businesses that are here, if you drive along Columbia Boulevard, and you drive along the Marine, you'll see all kinds of houses and small businesses and stuff that have been there for a long time. And these really affect the changes a lot. It's important to protect us from the larger industries that will change things, but we have to welcome the individual businesses that are here because they're not going away. Our plumbers, our electricians, our tool cast and die, the marine we have here, our harbors are known worldwide. So it's going to take a little more nuance than blanketing and maybe having it at a couple, 2 or 3 levels, having something where you have things that are here that are smaller, aren't necessarily going to change as much as we'd like, but step them in the direction we want. And then make firm things on the larger ones that really can. One of the problems where we let people buy off bids for the economy, for the environment, is the businesses that could do the most and spend the most don't have to, because they just buy something and they could really innovate. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Awesome. And thank you. And next up, we have Kelly Holtz, Greg Obloy, and Robin Smith. Great. We'll start with Kelly.
Hello, I'm Kelly. All right, let me start. Good afternoon, Planning Chair and Commissioners. My name is Kelly Holtz. I serve as the president of the Waterfront Organizations of Oregon. That's WOO. WOO represents boat marinas, floating home morages, and other river-dependent businesses. I'm here to testify in opposition to the proposed Columbia Corridor industrial land E-zone overlay and the effect this additional layer of regulation will have on floating home morages, boat marinas, river-dependent businesses, and the family wage jobs that make up Portland's working waterfront. By definition, boat marinas and marine service providers and floating home morages can only exist on the river and the shore. Floating home morages are river-dependent by definition. They're also an important housing component in the Columbia Corridor. These areas are already highly regulated and subject to Clean River standards. River-dependent businesses and organizations are excellent environmental stewards because their livelihoods depend on a clean and functioning river. The concern about the CCIL E-zone overlay is not environmental protection. It is that the cumulative regulatory burden is becoming unsustainable. Each new layer of regulation adds cost and delay to even small jobs, like routine maintenance, dredging, emergency repairs, and small safety or environmental upgrades. And when routine work becomes too difficult or too expensive to permit, maintenance is delayed and infrastructure deteriorates, which does not benefit the river or the community. In summary, we ask the Commission to ensure the CCIL E-zone overlay proposal will, 1, exempt existing water-dependent marine businesses from new river setbacks or buffers that would make operations unfeasible. 2, specifically protect and preserve marine-dependent industrial land for its unique water-dependent uses while protecting environmental values. And 3, recognize the importance of preserving existing family wage jobs and working waterfront businesses in the Columbia Corridor. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Greg was online.
Yes, can you hear me?
You can.
Yeah, Greg Obloy. I'm calling to object as to how the mapping of an EP zone impacts our property. And I've been listening, and I'm hopefully that may be working through staff in a site visit that this can be remedied. But this is really technical. But our property, 2010 Northeast Riverside, we're pinched in between two EP zones, but on the eastern boundary, EC zones, not P. On the eastern boundary of our property line, the expansion of the conservation zone seems a bit egregious, and we notice on the mapping on the city's maps that the eastern boundary line is inaccurate, and we just had a survey done on our property a couple of years ago. So I think we can get that addressed maybe with staff. And then on the north end of our property, they propose a small EC zone, and when we look at this, we don't see any resource that needs to be conserved. It's a road, and then there's some grass and some trees. I mean, obviously, if there's a wetland or a slough or stream or something, obviously it should be preserved. But there's just nothing there. So we object to the mapping, at least on the east and northern boundary of our property there. And I'll follow up with written testimony and follow up with staff, because I think maybe that this can be addressed with an on-site visit or maybe just a phone call with staff. So I appreciate your time. And with that, I'll sign off.
Thank you, Greg. And just a note that, as Jeff and Daniel had mentioned, you have until January 28th to do so.
Yeah, I'll reach out tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Bye.
Love it. Robin.
Hi. Oh, it's working. Great. I'm Robin Smith, and I think all of us in this room really want the same result: to protect this place that we call home. I've lived on Hayden Island and have cared for the North Portland Channel of the Columbia River for 16 years. It's my home and one I can retire and age in. And it's affordable when real estate in Portland is not. The proposal in front of you for increased buffers means that if our moorage has to make emergency repairs to our infrastructure, the additional overlays could delay and significantly increase our costs. Some repairs might become impossible. River-dependent homes and businesses like mine cannot relocate inland. Our entire infrastructure literally floats on top of the water. Zoning must reflect this fundamental reality. As a second-generation affordable housing development consultant with 30 years of experience and someone who has built 500 units of affordable housing in the last 4 years, I'm experienced at wading through complex regulations. This proposal exceeds anything that I have had to comply with. I know the drafters meant well, but it's another unfunded mandate that adds burden to already complicated requirements without a clear outcome. Please realize that those of us who are dependent on the river are already protecting her. We must be doing it right. Outside my door, we have migrating grebes, merganser ducks who show up every winter. We have beaver, otter, eagles, osprey, fish, cormorants, and I could keep going. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great. Thank you both. Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have Michael Connors online, and there you are, Glenn Fuller and Michael Mescal.
Do I go first?
Yes, at your leisure.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. My name is Mike Connors. I'm an attorney at Hathaway Larson, and I represent Hayden Island Enterprises, the owner and operators of the Hayden Island manufactured home community, which consists of 440 manufactured home sites and 1,500 residents. The city has historically recognized the importance of preserving manufactured home parks as low-income housing options and facilitating the replacement and alteration of manufactured homes as outlined in our comment letter we submitted on the MAP app. This project will significantly impact the park because it proposes to extend the EC zone, overlay zone, onto approximately 75 existing manufactured home sites and significant portions of the park common areas. The EC overlay zone requirements are particularly problematic for the park for two reasons. First, existing manufactured homes are moved, altered, and/or replaced far more frequently than traditional structures and are often replaced with larger manufactured homes that require a different building footprint and/or utilities. Second, the park is a recognized nonconforming development originally built in 1964, and there is very little flexibility in locating new or replacement manufactured homes and related improvements. Although the EC overlay zone provisions currently exempt certain types of repair and replacement of existing structures, they prohibit any change or increase in the building footprint or utility size, which is frequently altered when manufactured homes are replaced. To address these concerns, we are requesting two amendments to the proposed regulations as outlined in our letter. First, we request that the city exempt the repair, alteration, and replacement of existing manufactured homes altogether, similar to how the existing code exempts the alteration or replacement of floating homes. Second, we request that the city exempt repair, replace and/or upgrades to the park common area improvements, utilities, and amenities necessary to serve the manufactured home residents and community. Hayden Island Enterprises understands the city's desire to update the environmental overlay zones, but it must do so in a way that balances this priority with other important city priorities. The preservation and protection of existing manufactured homes as a vital, affordable housing resource is one of those important priorities the city has recognized for decades and is even more important in today's current market. With that, I'll conclude my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Glenn.
Is this on? Okay. Hi, my name is Glenn Fuller. I am a resident along the slough. I've recently purchased my house this year. Being on the slough was a huge draw to living in this house. It's lovely sitting in the backyard and looking out over the birds and ducks and drinking coffee in the morning. I'm all for environmental protection regulation, and having that waterway there is awesome. I feel that the code needs to make distinctions between industrial, commercial, and residential usage of the land near the water, as many others believe it is entirely too restrictive. With current setbacks, much of our land is essentially undevelopable, causing strain on quality of life, such as building play areas for children, tool sheds for property maintenance, garden beds, ADUs for increased urban housing density, adding provisions for water access, etc. Some of my neighbors' homes and properties are fully within the protection zone due to their property shape, making their entire property unusable with the exception of environmental restoration projects. Most of the waterfront of the slough is industrial with limited public access, and those sites are well over 5 acres on average and butt right up against the slough. Due to this, residential development is heavily affected and restricted, whereas industrial is minimally affected. For example, properties in my neighborhood are under a 1/4 acre on average, and the protection zone extends well over halfway through our properties. This will have the effect of reducing property in resale value and resale ability and incentivize incentivize residential sell-off for increased industrial development. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Chair Routh and members of the Portland Planning Commission. I'm still Mike Meskel, and I'm still speaking today on behalf of Bird Alliance of Oregon and our 10,000 members in Portland Metro. As the CCIL highlights, the Columbia Corridor is home to a variety of natural resources, including the Columbia River, Columbia Slough, floodplains, wetlands, and significant riparian tree canopy. These resources provide critical ecosystem functions that improve water quality, reduce stormwater runoff and erosion, and support fish and wildlife habitat. And all that benefits that are provided to residential communities that border the Columbia Corridor in North and Northeast Portland. The E-zone, updating these E-zones will better protect the existing natural resources while also helping to protect nearby residents and industrial properties by allowing these natural systems to capture runoff, reduce flooding, and prevent landslides. This is especially important as we expect more frequent flash flooding events like the atmospheric river we experienced last month, and the Columbia Slough and adjacent riparian areas serve as a sponge to mitigate the harm to humans and infrastructure. We should be increasing the sponge whenever possible. The CCIL had been held up by previous EUA updates, and we're relieved that the city is moving forward on these updates to provide greater protections. We'll be providing more substantive written comments on the proposed draft once we've completely ground truthed some of the mapping updates at several locations along the corridor that we've been especially focused on creating habitat improvements at. But generally, we're supportive of the proposed draft direction in implementing a medium-high conservation scenario. We believe that there are several locations around Wilkes Creek in East Portland that deserve more P-zone application and instead of the more permissive C-zones, and we'll be providing those recommendations in the coming weeks. I'll close with 2 points relevant to the CCIL and EOA. Most of the environmental protections only go into place or will be enforced when future development takes place. So existing infrastructure is grandfathered and impacts to current operations is limited. Secondly, as the E-zone mapping, tree code, and CCIL, along with river planning, have already been implemented across the rest of the entire city. If we further delay weaken the proposed CCIL draft, it would continue the pattern of environmental injustice that North Portland and the Columbia Corridor communities have experienced to date. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Up next, Lynn Felton, Jennifer Bonner, and Corky Collier. Oh, wait. Oh, Lynn, you're passing? Okay. Jennifer, at your leisure.
Is this on? Okay. Hi, my name is Jennifer Bonner, and I'm a homeowner of 4027 North Overlook Terrace. It is an empty lot. It has remained an empty lot for many, many years. Wanted to start off by saying I agree and support the intentions of the Environmental Overlay Zone project, but I would like to ask for people to start using common sense and to work with homeowners on a case-by-case basis. I have a building permit sitting at the City of Portland, which has been approved to build the first cross-laminated timber single-family home in the city, and I cannot get started on the project due to the high cost of excavation and foundation system. Clearly, if I'm trying to build a house out of CLT and be an example in the city and nationally, I believe in sustainability and environmental stewardship. So I believe in your efforts. But I've owned the property for 5 years and trying to get a single-family house built on the property. This is the Overlook Bluff. It's named EB5. It's the only in-town little sliver that the staff just showed on the map. If it remains an undeveloped parcel, the city is missing out on property tax revenue and people like myself leaving the city and not building experimental architecture here. A few facts: the total property is 17,000 square feet. The building footprint we are building is 1,400 square feet. It's a tiny postage stamp for the entire site. And by code, we actually have the right to build a 4,000 square foot building footprint, which we are not able to do, nor add an ADU or anything due to the restrictive environmental overlay. The building envelope was determined by the environmental overlay, the side setbacks, and the height restriction of 23 feet, which makes it extremely difficult. I'm asking that the existing house neighbor to the north of the parcel, it has a tree house built around a tree. It is not in compliance, and your team is still insisting that to use the same restrictive methodology. Lastly, I'm asking for you to not include one tree canopy out of 30 trees and to redraw and rethink the tree canopy methodology that's being used. And we'd like to move the line down 20 feet southwest down the hill. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Corky, take it.
Good evening. Maybe we're on now. On now?
Nope. Sorry, it's like a hazing ritual.
How about now?
It is.
Thank you. Corky Collier, Executive Director of the Columbia Corridor Association. I spent 6 years blocking a proposed dam that would have flooded hundreds of acres of wildlife habitat in 2 major rivers. We succeeded. I then went to be media director of the Heritage Forest Campaign to preserve 58.5 million acres of roadless area. We succeeded. I then worked to remove the 4 lower Snake River dams in order to restore healthy salmon populations. Still working on that one, so stay tuned. My point is, I have experience protecting habitat and wildlife in a way that benefits our economy, reduces wasted expenditures, and provides quality jobs. In other words, those projects pencil out. When you evaluate the EOA and CCIL, it's obvious that much of the environmental zone expansion is over residential backyards and industrial parking areas. Nobody can explain how our parking lot needs the highest level of protection. Nobody can convince my friends and neighbors that planting a garden in their backyard is a bad thing. You know, it's interesting that we have effective E-zones in the Columbia Corridor. We've had them for quite a while. And we've had quite a bit of natural space. 36% of the Columbia Corridor at 6,500 acres is E-zone or open space. In the residential areas in North and Northeast Portland, immediately to the south of the Columbia Corridor, that number is 9%. We're focusing on the wrong needs. We need more parks and neighborhoods. We need to complete the Slough Trail, for Pete's sake. We need to set aside valuable natural habitat along the Willamette River. We need to treat our residents with more respect. For every person here pointing out a problem, there's 50 that didn't want to come in and talk to you. The CCIL creates problems and does little to add valuable habitat. I suggest we move forward with the EOA and go back to the CCIL. Work on it a little bit more. We can do better. Thank you for your time.
Valenta Walter, Jesse Burgess, and Vanessa Belcourt. And again, I'm sorry if I have somehow mangled your appellations.
Hello, is that on?
Yes.
Yes?
Jesse?
Hello? Great, hi. My name's Walter Valenta. I'm the land use chair of Bridgeton neighborhood. You've heard now from East Columbia neighborhood, Bridgeton neighborhood, and Hayden Island neighborhood. We're 3 coordinated neighborhoods right along the Columbia River. And we're a pretty special little area, and a lot of people don't know anything about us. We're where all the sailboats are, all the floating homes are, almost all of them. We're sandwiched between industrial areas that we work really well with the freight, with Corky. We're inundated constantly with things. We have a new bridge that they keep trying to build in our area. We live on a levee. They're going to raise our levee up 18 inches to 3 feet through our entire neighborhood. We're bounded by sloughs. And now our neighbors are realizing that the thing they used to call their backyard is now a C zone. Even though they've been mowing it and using it, now there's going to be hurdles for them to add an ADU. I know it's possible, but we're trying to create more housing here in Portland. And we've been fighting to keep our housing that we have there. So it's hard for us to understand how come we need to add more regulations to this area that's been around Portland for over 125 years. And we would like to have the mapping in our neighborhood go back to the way it was before this mapping. We're only 2-mile-long neighborhood and 2 blocks wide. And we have a slough on our southern boundary, which of course would be protected. We've been protecting it. We've been working with Metro to buy it all up. So we're absolutely into protecting our natural resources, but we need to have our little pockets of land so that we can build on the lot that was next to our house without a lot of extra costs and expense, and put an ADU in if we want to, or those sorts of things. So we would like to challenge the mapping in the whole little stretch there, and have you recognize that with the river-dependent uses and the river uses, we already do a lot of regulations. We need to back off on this area and realize how special it is, and protect it more, protect the lifestyle there, not just the natural resources that are there that will keep our lifestyle from happening. So I'd like to be reminded when the public record's going to be open, because the neighborhood's meeting right now to formalize our response to you two as an official neighborhood
Will
response.
be open until February 3rd at 5 p.m.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Good.
Jesse.
Good evening, Chair Roth, Commissioners. I'm Jesse Burgess with Schwab, Williamson and Wyatt. I'm testifying today on behalf of owners of property located at 9645 North Columbia Boulevard, that's Red Arrow Properties LLC. 9707 North Columbia Boulevard, that's B&D Commercial Properties LLC. And 9635 North Columbia Boulevard, that's Iron Age LLC. Today I'm requesting an amendment to the Conservation Environmental Overlay where it's located on my client's properties. The basis for our request is that the overlay map erroneously places overlays on portions of the properties that should not be within the floodplain. Having spoken with planning staff about the overlay on my client's properties, it was explained that the FEMA 100-year flood map and the City of Portland's 1996 flood map provided the bases for that overlay. However, the maps failed to reflect the changes in topography that have occurred on the properties beginning in the mid-90s as a result of development and fill. Simply put, these portions of the property should not be within the floodplain. We appreciate the efforts and communications with planning staff on this issue. We will submit written testimony shortly, as well as doing a site walk with planning staff next week. However, it's important that our proposed amendments to the be addressed before the map and code changes are advanced to City Council. Applications for a Type 2 map correction error take months to process and will require my client to incur unnecessary costs and fees. Further, the avenue for demonstrating a map error has been abbreviated by the federal government's suspension of processing Lomer and Clomer applications as a result of the biological opinion litigation. Without my client being able to obtain a Lomer, they will effectively be cut off from the most appropriate and effective means of demonstrating that the floodplain and overlay map is placed on the property in error. For these reasons, we request an amendment removing the overlay map as it affects my client's properties.
Thank you. Vanessa? There you are.
Hi. Hi to the neighborhood homeowners and the Portland Planning Committee. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Vanessa, and I'm a new homeowner on Northeast 13th and Gertz Road. So I purchased this home about a year ago. This is my first home, and I made that decision very intentional with my husband. And one of the main reasons we chose this property was because of the large natural lot size and a little over a third of an acre. We were looking for space, stability, and the ability to raise our family long term. So I now have a 6-month-old baby, and this home represents security, planning, and investments in our future. At the time of our purchase, the property already had X and H overlays, which were fully disclosed. So the H overlay limited the height of structures and vegetation in areas near the airport to ensure safety for aircraft operations. So we already have restrictions on how tall buildings, fences, and trees can be here. So we accepted these conditions and made an informed decision based on what was known and regulated at that time. What concerns me deeply is that the proposal to add 3 additional environmental overlays at our property for C, P, and Z for a total of 5 overlays. So these new overlays would significantly restrict what I can and can't do with my own property and negatively affect property value, use, and future plans. This feels like a fundamental change to the agreement we as homeowners relied on when purchasing, and had these additional overlays existed or even been proposed at the time, we may not have purchased this home at all. And we just want to be clear, I care about the environmental protection, but broad layered overlays placed whether 25 or 50 feet outside of natural wetlands on existing homeowners without clear necessity, individualized assessment, or homeowner consent create real hardship. The burden should not fall disproportionately on families who already followed those rules and bought in good faith. My parents emigrated here from Venezuela, and they taught me how important stable, predictable rules are when you work hard to build a life. And I respectfully ask the city to consider additional overlays, to reconsider those additional overlays for a total of 5 overlays to properties like mine and the East Columbia neighborhood, or at a minimum, be exempt to existing homeowners who purchased under current regulations. So I wanted to ask the city to conduct a specific site visit to verify whether the overlays are truly necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our last 2, Justin Teutsch and Kevin Flanagan. And again, I'm sorry if I have mangled your last names.
You're first.
Oh, God. The pronunciation of the last name was impeccable, actually.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Justin Teutsch, and our family is the owner of Columbia Crossings Marinas, which employs 25 people on Hayden Island. The discussion draft proposes that all land in a special flood hazard area and within 170 feet of ordinary high water be subject to E-zone overlays, requiring a Type 2 land use decision. Objectively, this is well beyond the requirements of the FEMA model ordinance. FEMA does not propose or require a separate environmental review process distinct from building permit or site development permit to meet their standards. The EN process, as we all know, is notoriously cumbersome and typically takes applicants over 2 years and tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to complete, even for small projects. The new FEMA requirements, such as compensatory set-asides, stormwater improvements, and other measures, could be effectively addressed through PP&D's review of building permits. This will streamline the process of meeting these higher standards. Small and medium-sized businesses cannot afford the costs associated with a Type 2 land use review. Therefore, improvements, new investments, needed upgrades, and site modernizations are deferred or abandoned, which can lead to worse environmental outcomes. The impact, of course, on Hayden Island from the imposition of E-zones on large amounts of commercial and industrial land would be particularly acute. As we know, Hayden Island has struggled economically in recent years, and the proposal would be a major setback to its recovery. Portland's waterfront community is already challenged by Portland's economic challenges, declining boat ownership, abandoned boats, decaying docks and piers, contaminated sites, and other challenges. In this context, the E-zone designation would be difficult to absorb and a major challenge for our business as we seek to maintain and improve our land. Our business relies on the protection of the Columbia. We want to improve our property, and we urge the Commission to reject the discussion draft because the E-zone designation imposes an onerous process that is well beyond FEMA's requirements and will preclude responsible environmental stewardship.
How do I turn this on? Okay, I guess it is on. Thank you, Planning Commission, for all your patience in listening to all the testimony tonight. My name's Kevin Flanagan. I own Schooner Creek Boat Works, which is one of those river-dependent businesses that you've been hearing about tonight. We are the largest boat repair service yard in Portland, lifting boats up to 75 tons. Schooner Creek Boat Works is also a boat builder. We've been building boats on the banks of the Columbia River since 1977, creating strong family wage jobs of high craftsmanship and skilled employees to keep our waterways operational, to bring in tourism, to keep the boats afloat on our river, which you've heard tonight. There are a number which are not afloat along the banks of the river. We're a family-owned business. My son is here, Quinn Flanagan. We operate on Hayden Island, adjacent to the railroad tracks on Canoe Bay. Canoe Bay creates a unique shaped parcel where we own the property. It's pie-shaped. Pie-shaped with setbacks coming from two directions, 170 feet, basically takes the entire lot. And one of our lots is gonna be completely covered by the new C-zone. Before we bought the property, we did have the C-zone removed because it was an error, and we would not have bought the property had we not been able to get that. This change really affects the value of my property and other property owners along the Columbia corridor. So we really ask you to reconsider. I've submitted written documents for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. All right. And I want to last call if anyone else who has not had a chance to offer testimony to do so. This is your last time orally, but again, we have abundant time until February 3rd at 5 p.m. For written. Okay. We can bless and release you, by the way, too. You don't have to. Thank you. And with that, we will close the oral testimony for the CCIL, and we will continue this agenda item to February 24th meeting, which is the work session. I want to just thank I want to thank Autumn for this is the last the CEI hub, and also these hearings take a lot of time, and it has been seamless. And so I just want to shout you out, shout all staff out for doing all the work. You can't see them, but Open Signal is in a small room back there and is allowing everyone to live stream right now. And I just want to thank everyone, especially those who have never testified before. You took a chance on us, and we really appreciate it. So thank you very much. Obviously, there's a lot of passion, and there's a lot of nuance, and a lot of differing opinions, and that's the work before us. If any commissioners have any parting words before we adjourn? Okay. Thank you all so much. Please get home safe. We really appreciate your time. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thanks all.
We did.